Welcome to my channel. If you're looking for an amazing novel, visit my Patreon page. Your support will help turn this story into an exciting audiobook. Join me on this journey. Chapter 11, Aftermath of the Bloody Valkyrie. Citrinidas's POV. Shalltear has been brainwashed. The words that were spoken out of my mouth made the previous homely atmosphere cold and tense. It was like the world suddenly froze in time. The area was so silent, you could have heard a pin drop from 50 meters away. What? Ins questioned. It wasn't a question filled with curiosity, but one that was filled with shock and controlled anger. I saw Narbaral's legs slightly shake from the skeleton's pressure and anger. Shalltear was attacked by a mysterious group during her mission outside Irantal. I replied. I sensed the signature of a powerful magical artifact earlier. So, I went to investigate and saw a group consisting of 13 brainwashed Shalltear. With this, I gestured to the item in my hands. Downfall of castle and country, Ins said under his breath. His glowing red eyes were soul-piercing. I was going to continue to talk and voice my made-up story when Ins's hand smashed against the wall. Fuck. Ins, whose emotional nullifier was overrun with emotions, let out an intense aura of death and despair. While the hairs on my skin shot up, I was able to maintain composure from such an aura with cold-blooded. On the other hand, Narbaral, who was a level 63 NPC, collapsed to the marble floor. She did her best to resist and get back up. However, the sheer pressure her body was in didn't allow her to get back up. I could have sworn that the marble floor her knees were uncracked from the pressure. Fuck, fuck, fuck. Damn it all. His rage was pure and untamed. It reminded me of the scene where Foresight lied to Ins about going to Nazarick. But, there was a difference between reading the works on a book or watching the show to actually witnessing it in person. The thought of Foresight did remind me of their grim fate. Each member suffered a fate worse than death. Except for Archie. Out of the whole bunch, she probably has the best, most humane fate of them all. Compared to being a living host for insects and parasites, death doesn't seem too bad. If I recall, Archie had sisters that died from overwork. Should I save them or ignore them? Knowing those innocent sisters will be overworked to death is heart-churning. But, why should I care for the lives of people I have no relation to? It doesn't help me in any way if I save the sisters from a logical standpoint. I can't be saving every innocent person that suffers. Fuck, I'm thinking too much. I dismissed the multitude of thoughts for a later time, focusing on the raging Overlord. The raw emotion he emitted created howling winds in the hallway we were in. It wasn't until some of the guardians rushed towards my direction that Ins's emotional nullifier kicked in and he calmed down. Albedo? Demiurge? Esteth? What are you doing here? Ins asked in confusion. My lord. Albedo exclaimed, rushing to the side of her lover. Narbaral regained her senses and stood back up, albeit with shaky legs. We felt your rage throughout Nazarick and immediately came to check up on you. The succubus exclaimed, waving her wings around and hugging the man's bony arm. My lord, is everything all right? Demiurge cautiously asked, putting a hand on his chest and slightly bowing to show respect. Why yes. I just lost control of my emotions after hearing some unfortunate news. Ins said, tilting his skull towards my direction. The three guardians glanced at my masked face with curious gazes. Brother, I do love you. However, making my love feel so much rage is unacceptable. Albedo retorted, glaring at my mask whilst rubbing her cheeks all over the skeleton's robes. It's nothing of the sort, Albedo. I simply replied to the succubus. Citrinidas, I'll permit you to inform the others about your shocking discovery. Ins said to me. I slightly nodded before turning to the floor guardians who were looking for answers. To keep things short, Shalltear has been brainwashed with this. I gestured to the beautiful dress in my hands. Downfall of castle and country. A world item that can brainwash any being no matter their strengths or immunities. I stated. The faces of the three floor guardians were all different. Demiurge had a face that suggested he was in deep thought. Albedo, who was rubbing her cheeks on Ins's robes, gave a grumble and slightly bit her lip. Esteth on the other hand, while she did show visible anger, I did notice a slight smirk. I noticed an abnormal magic signature in the outskirts of Irantal and went to check. When I arrived, I witnessed a group of 13 humans brainwashing Shalltear with the world item. Of course, I couldn't leave such a powerful artifact in the hands of an unknown group. So, I killed 7 of the 13 people. The others fled with their tails tucked between their legs. As I finished my sentence, Demiurge stepped in and asked me a question. Citrinidas, do you happen to know who these beings were? The Archdevil asked. Considering this group had such a powerful item from Yggdrasil, do you think they are a rival group of players? The mention of players made Ins slightly take a step back. Though, it went unnoticed by everyone except me. I didn't even get to reply when Albedo burst into a fit of rage. Players? Players? If any players want to hurt my lord Ainz, they will cease to exist the moment I find them. Ins put his hand on Albedo's head, calming her down. Albedo, calm yourself. He started with authority. My apologies, Lord Ins. Please forgive me. Albedo said apologetically before snuggling her head to Ins's hand like a cat. Can there really be other players stuck in the same predicament as me? If so, then I'm nothing special. I should be more cautious. Ins thought. Ins looked towards me, nodding his head to let me continue speaking. Back to what Demiurge asked. I slightly paused, recuperating my previous thoughts. I'm not entirely sure if they were players or not. Maybe they could have been servants of a player or a group of them. I predict, considering their level and their ability to use martial arts, they are most likely new world denizens that serve a player, I stated. Demiurge seemed to nod as if formulating new plans and ideas. Esteth, Albedo, and even Narberl took in what I had to say about the matter. Inns just rubbed his chin, deep in thought about the whole ordeal. There was a moment of silence between us all before Inns started to talk. How do we proceed? He muttered. Please stop your flattery, my lord. To give us, lowly servants, a chance to peer into your endless mind. Surely, you have already thought of a plan, right? Demiurge questioned, catching the attention of all that were present. Flattery? Plan? What did I say? Indeed, it is as you say, Demiurge. I have already thought of a plan on how to proceed. But, I'm giving you, my loyal servants, the chance to enact my plan. Inns exclaimed, raising his hands into the air. Plan? Demiurge, I don't follow. Narberl replied to the Archdevil. Demiurge, as the smartest being here, I permit you to explain my plan to the others present. Inns said, making the Archdevil deviously smile. My lord, I'm truly humbled by your compliment. But, there is none the wiser than yourself. Demiurge exclaimed even further. Esteth huffed, crossing her arms to accentuate her already large breasts. I bet Citronides is smarter. She muttered under her breath. Me? Smarter than Demiurge? While I appreciate a compliment, I am by no means smarter than that dude. I'm just saying shit which surprisingly works. Is this what Inns feels? I wondered. I could only speculate and grasp what your plan is. However, the Archdevil cleared his throat, getting back to his master's orders. This minor setback may seem a hindrance, but this is actually a benefit to Nazarick in the long run. The Archdevil started. I could only guess that Citronides has already thought of this. Maybe even Albedo. But, this incident has helped us realize that there are plenty of unknown dangers in this new world. It is better to realize these setbacks now than to experience this when our lord establishes his empire. Demiurge exclaimed with a bright smile. There has to be more than that, right Demiurge? Esteth asked. Precisely, there are always layers to the Supreme One's plan. This is where the establishment of Momon comes into play, Demiurge said, taking everyone's curiosity except myself. Citronides and I have discussed this not too long ago, but our lord's plan for world conquest started the moment he established his adventurer persona, Momon. When the Adventurer Guild discovers the appearance of a powerful vampire outside Irantal, who do you think they'll go to? Demiurge asked. It all makes sense now, Narberl muttered. Sense? I have no idea what's going on. I just wanted to go on adventures. What is happening? Inns internally freaked out. His mind was a buzzing mess. Of course, they will go to Momon. That's when Inns will be able to fight and kill Shalltear, thus resurrecting the vampire slut while bolstering the Momon's rank as the best adventurer in the country. Albedo said, snuggling and slightly drooling onto the Overlord's expensive fabrics. It is as you say, Demiurge and Albedo, Inns exclaimed, making the Archdevil smile and the succubus blush from the praise. You humble us too much, my lord. Demiurge refused the praise given to him and bowed. Well, considering the level of significance of this event, we have plenty of things to do. Inns said. Narberl, send a message to Solution and Sabas to come back to Nazarick immediately. The battlemaid bowed. It will be done, my lord. She replied. Demiurge, strengthen Nazarick's defenses to the maximum. We have no clue if a group of players might retaliate after having their items stolen by Citronides. It will be done with efficiency and care, my lord. Demiurge said with his usual tone of compliance. And Albedo, Inns looked towards the beautiful succubus. Yes, my lord. My sister asked, slightly tilting her head. Please, come with me to the treasury room. Inns asked. My lord, I shall dutifully follow you to the ends of the earth. Albedo exclaimed, flapping her wings with excitement. That reminds me, Inns quickly turned to me before leaving. Can you pass the world item? It would be safe in the treasury where the other world items are located. Inns asked. Of course, my lord. I said with no hesitation. I handed over the dress to the Overlord, who stored it in his inventory. What was I going to do with the world item anyways? I certainly had no use for it. Besides, if I did, was I going to refuse the request of the de facto ruler of Nazarick? Furthermore, a being who all NPCs view as an entity beyond a god? I think not. Esteth, Citronides, you're dismissed. I shall meet you both, along with the other guardians tomorrow in the throne room, he said before leaving with the world-class beauty to the treasury, leaving me with the ice demon herself. Fu. Now that we're alone, beloved, we have much to discuss, Esteth said, walking towards me with a slight blush on her face. Should I teleport away? I thought. No, I'd just be a pussy. Besides, I'll be having to deal with crazy NPCs all the time. Screw it, I'll talk to her. Just, why can't someone normal love me? Why does it have to be the sadists and yanderas? A/N, actually, I just want you to suffer by dealing with thirsty women and potential yanderas. To be honest, it would be pretty sad if you did find a normal woman to date. Therefore, I'll do everything in my power to stop that from ever happening. The Ice Queen reached out for my arm and snuggled on it, just like Albedo within moments earlier. What do you want, Esteth? I asked. My tone was an odd combination of polite, demanding, fed up and mystery. That only made the women grasp onto my arm further. What do I want? Why you of course. she said, straightening her back and looking up at my masked face. As per usual, she ripped off my mask and toe fat with no hesitation and chucked it behind her. "AHH, your bewitching and handsome face. I'm so glad to see it again," she said, getting closer to my face. She used her hand to touch my cheek. It was soft, yet cold to the touch. If it wasn't for my cold immunity, I would have shivered. "I think that's enough, Esteth," I said to the ice demon before she would try something. Esteth reluctantly moved her hand off my cheek, slightly pouting and crossing her arms. Though, she still used her hands to grab my hands and to get closer. Her breasts almost touched my chest. I can never truly know what goes on in my beloved's head. He went on a date with me and we had fun the other day. He giggled as I tortured that knee-gun bastard. It was the perfect bonding experience. So, why is he so reluctant? Is he playing hard to get? I read that from a book in Ashurbanipal which states that the person really loves you but just wants to tease you. Esteth smiled at the thought. There is another reason which I hope isn't true. Citronides is upset that Shalltear was brainwashed and had to fight her. That damn vampire slut, always messing up my plans. The moment she snaps out of that state, oh she'll have hell to pay. Esteth's smile turned sour, slightly grumbling. I moved away from the ice demon and went to grab my mask and hat which lay on the marble floor not too far away. "Is wanting to spend more time with me the only reason you're here?" I asked, reaching out for my mask. "MMHM. Esteth hummed a response while shaking her head upwards. "My god, this is such a pain. I would rather go back to either reading some books or experimenting with alchemy. Going to the 6th floor to fight summons isn't a bad idea either." I was thinking, since Shalltear is currently unavailable, maybe we could. Esteth accentuated her breasts, revealing them even more. She started to walk to where I was again, swinging her hips side to side. "Have some fun?" she asked in a really seductive tone. Image here. She wants to fuck me? Sorry, Esteth. I don't stick my dick in crazy. I would prefer a normal woman who doesn't get her pleasure by torture and slash or BDSM. I shall not fall to temptation from such lowly tricks. Any man would have instantly agreed to the request, throwing away their dignity to get their dick wet. However, I'm wise enough to know that once you stick your dick in crazy, the person in question will become abnormally obsessed with you. A relationship like that is unhealthy and horrible. In the anime, such a trope is fine. But, this is real life. A friend of mine back in my previous world nearly got stabbed by a crazy girlfriend. While I do appreciate the effort and am flattered, I must decline your offer as I have plenty of work to do. With the brainwashing of Shalltear, I must prepare powerful potions for Lordins to use. I do hope you understand," I said in a formal tone while not trying to hurt the feelings of the lady. Esteth let out a small sigh, dropping her seductive act before going back to her normal form. "Very well, Citronides," she said with maturity. "I understand that you have plenty of work to do. However," Esteth slightly paused, forming a little smirk. "I do hope in the near future that we can meet more frequently. Hopefully without that vampire whore hogging your free time when you exit your alchemy lab," Esteth added. "Very well, Esteth. I'll meet with the other guardians tomorrow," I said before casting teleportation back to my room. Well, at least that was easy to deal with. If only it were that simple with Shalltear. Time skip, one day. Albedo, Demiurge, Cocytus, Esteth, and myself, gathered around a hovering holographic display situated above an expensive table. The royal couches we sat on were big enough to give a person such as Cocytus proper legroom and not feel claustrophobic. For the first minute of watching Ins prepare his magic buffs, we didn't speak. Not the type of awkward silence created after a parent finished screaming at their child, but a silence that was created due to the intrigue presented in front of you. It wasn't until Demiurge broke the silence with a question open to those present. "Who do you think will win? Realistically, that is," the archdevil questioned, tilting his glasses upwards. Albedo puffed, crossing her arms and crossing one leg over the other. "Why, my lordins, of course," my sister said with confidence. Demiurge gave a slight sigh as if expecting the answer but not wanting that to be the case. "Albedo, let's take a look at this from a more serious perspective. For the sake of the question, please cease your bias for the Supreme One," Demiurge said professionally. "And why should I do that? Our Lord will obviously win. With the backup from Aura and Mare with their world items I got for the treasury, his victory is sealed," Albedo said with confidence. I listened to the conversation, not wanting to deal with a provoked succubus. I would rather let Demiurge deal with that than intrude. I'm not doubting our Lord's ability. However, we must take in all the factors. Shalltear was built by Lord Pararonkino to excel in 1v1 combat. Ins, while being powerful in his own right, is not suited to fight a min-maxed entity such as Shalltear. Demiurge rebuked. "That is true. However, our Lord has his own set of trump cards," Cocytus added. "Cocytus isn't wrong. I've heard from my creator, Lord Blue Planet, that Ins had a racial trait called Dark Wisdom that lets him use over 700 spells rather than the usual 300. Esteth added. "Citronides, Demiurge spoke to me. Who do you think will win?" he questioned, hopefully getting a more reasonable response from an expert in magic. "It's hard to say really. However, I do believe that Lord Ins has the upper hand," I said with ambiguity. "And why is that, darling?" Esteth said, shuffling closer to my side. Look at the screen. I gestured to the ongoing fight. Ins was consumed by a column of fire. The same magic skill that Shalltear used on me. Aren't undead weak to fire? I don't see what you're gesturing at. Esteth said. The floor guardians all squinted at the screen before they let out a collective "Ah, what a magnificent play on our lord's part," Demiurge exclaimed, praising the skeleton as usual. To think that such a detail went unnoticed by a warrior such as myself. Cocytus let out a cold mist from his mouth. Lord Ins, even though he should be weak to fire, is actually pretending not to. Esteth muttered under her breath. I should save such a tactic for future use, she thought. Of course, only the leader of the Supreme Beings himself would pull such a stunt. I would have never noticed such a small detail like that as quickly as you did, Citronidas. The Archdevil praised me, putting me on some fictional pedestal. I didn't even get to finish my fucking sentence. I thought, these guys really are keen on picking up information, huh? I concluded. Indeed, in a fight, it is always important to deceive the enemy. From illusions to chanting false spells, it will always put you one step ahead. I concluded my observation. So, what you're saying, eyes, knowledge, equals power? Cocytus asked, confused if there was a possible double meaning in my words and wanted clarification. Yes, Cocytus. In a fight, knowledge is power. I gave the insectoid a nod of approval. I didn't know that my fiancé would be so wise in battle tactics. A small detail such as that would have surely flown by my head in a battle. His endless knowledge and unique perspectives only make me want him more. Esteth licked her lips as her hand slid down her thigh. In due time, I'll take what's mine. Hell, I'll do it in front of the vampire whore just to spite her. The battle between Ins and Shalltear raged on. To be honest, the fight was a lot quicker than I anticipated. With me slightly weakening Shalltear's armor with corrosion and providing Ins with powerful splash potions, it was expected. However, I was able to see some new magic that wasn't in the show. One spell I saw Ins use were these dark razor discs that he threw like a frisbee. While most were dodged, one hit the leg of Shalltear, slowing down her movements by a significant amount of time before she healed herself. I was also able to see the effects of some of my potions that I hadn't been able to test yet because of certain conditions. The whole scene was exhilarating to watch. Explosions lit up the sky as trees were knocked to the ground from the sheer pressure of the fight. Time passed again as Ins revealed the world champion armor worn by Touch Me Impossible. That armor was worn by Lord Touch Me. How could the Supreme One wear such a thing? Cocytus said with sudden shock. Quite simple, really. It's the spell Perfect Warrior. I muttered, staying in character by pointing out magic spells every now and then. But I mostly stayed silent during the fight. There was more discussion between the floor guardians, but I dismissed most of it as they basically repeated what they said in the show. One after the other, Ins pulled out multiple divine class items with the help of cash shop items. From long swords to hammers. From massive gauntlets to bows. Each hit pulverized Shalltear with devastating effect. The floor guardians loved every minute of it. It's about time Shalltear gets some sense beat into her, Esteth said with a gleaming smile. Albedo only nodded with an approving smirk. Indeed, between the both of you, I think that you should be my brother's first wife instead of that lamprey, my sister said, trailing off at the end. Welp, here we go again. Esteth snuggled into my shoulder like a needy cat begging for attention. Esteth, please mind your space, I said politely. However, unlike my previous successful pleas, Esteth didn't budge. In fact, she only snuggled into my chest even more. Teleporting away would have seemed quite petty and bad on my part. Her iron-tight grip didn't help either. Esteth, please control yourself. Citronidas is obviously focused on the fight, Demiurge said with politeness. Indeed. Esteth, please, spare those actions for somewhere else, Cocytus added. Yes, the boys have come in clutch. I celebrated my mini victory courtesy of the Archdevil and the Insectoid. Esteth gave a little pout, seeing that her plan at getting closer to me failed miserably. She quickly went back to her spot and continued to watch the fight that was nearing its end. The fight ended soon after Esteth moved as Ins unleashed super tier magic, fallen down to land the final blow, killing Shalltear for good. The entire screen went white for a good 10 seconds before everything ceased, showing a ruined environment and Ins standing alone. Our lord has won as usual. I didn't doubt his abilities once. Not after his little speech he gave me during our walk to the treasury room, Albedo confidently exclaimed. Demiurge had a look of glee and a wicked smile. The type of smile you'd see when a bratty kid found the candy jar in the kitchen. It was an honor, seeing the Supreme One fight like that, Cocytus said, huffing cold mist into the air. Well, I'd better be heading to the throne room. Ins should have teleported there as of now. The gold should either be there or is in the final process of transportation from the treasury room, I said, wanting to speed things up. Darling is right. You don't mind me joining you on your trip there, right? Esteth asked with a sweet and innocent smile. However, I was able to detect faint traces of intimidation that were hidden. Not wanting to deal with Esteth's pleas and frustrations down the line, I reluctantly accepted her proposal. Within an instant, the ice demon latched onto my arm, hugging and snuggling it like a child would a teddy bear. The other floor guardians followed in pursuit, not wanting to make Lordin's wait. Within minutes, we arrived at a grand metal door that reached the ceiling. The entrance to the throne room, I concluded. I've never actually been to the throne room personally, and at a first glance, the whole thing was absolutely massive. The anime didn't do the room enough justice. Massive flags hung from the massive pillars on the sides of the room. Each one had a unique symbol in black. From the center, hung a massive dark chandelier that emanated a blue light. The marble floor was polished to a degree that seemed impossible. Not a speck of dust was seen in sight. At the end of the massive room was the throne itself. It stood mighty and tall with an even more massive background solely for details. And from the very top, hung a massive banner. The previous flags paled in comparison to the sheer size of the thing. Normally, the throne room would have been clear. However, due to the huge piles of gold littered across the room, that wasn't the case. I saw Ins, in his usual royal robes waiting for us to arrive. There were also other NPCs on standby, the Pleiades and Pandora's actor to name a few. Greetings, my lord. I must congratulate you on your victory, I said with politeness. Citronitas. There's no need for such flattery. I did what needed to be done. Ins replied back with his usual demeanor. My lord. Albedo rushed from the rest of the group and launched herself towards the unsuspecting skeleton. Wadeshins fell back from having a woman grip and pin him to the ground. The succubus wrapped her arms, legs and wings around the poor salaryman. I was so worried about you, she exclaimed. Wait, didn't you say that you believed in him earlier? Probably the code talking. I chucked my thought away. Albedo? Albedo, please get off of me, Ins corrected himself. Within a millisecond, Albedo took a noble posture, as if nothing ever happened. Ahem, Ins stood back up. Anyways, now that you're all here, it's time to resurrect Shalltear. But, just get your weapons ready in case Shalltear is still under effect of the world item. Ins said as we all got out our personal world items. Yep, personal world items. He gave them out right before the battle he had with Shalltear. Most of the floor guardians got the world items they received from the show. Mare had avarice and generosity. Demiurge had billion blades. You get the picture. However, what was interesting was the world item Death and myself got. Both world items that weren't in the show or light novels. My world item was, of course, related to alchemy. Its name was the Philosopher's Stone. A glowing red stone about the size of your thumb that could either be put in a necklace or a ring. I chose the latter. To keep it simple, the Philosopher's Stone was overpowered as fuck. If my previous magical stats were good before, having the Philosopher's Stone with me overcharges each bar. This includes my mana, magical attack and defense, resist and special tenfold. Though, that can only activate once every 3 days. It would be too overpowered if it were always active. The world item also reduced the cost of everything alchemy related and increased the effects of potions for the user. For example, a lesser health potion may heal 20 of your health. However, with the Philosopher's Stone, that could double to 40 health. There are also other uses and abilities. However, explaining everything would take too long. Asteth's world item was a rapier that radiated a chilly aura just by being near it. The world item was called Absolute Zero. A pretty menacing name for a rapier. It also looked way cooler than mine, making me ever so slightly jealous inside. From what I could tell with all appraisal magic item, the thing was an absolute unit. It was similar to Jinyoung Gagap as they both were able to deal massive AoE damage. However, unlike Jinyoung Gagap, Absolute Zero was able to deal decent damage against individuals. Though, as the name suggested, the world item specialized in ice-type damage. It also wasn't able to change forms like Jinyoung Gagap. Now that everyone is ready, I shall commence the resurrection process. Ins raised his staff into the air. Shalltear, resurrect. He shouted as his voice echoed throughout the throne room. A wave of golden energy emanated from the staff as the surrounding gold turned into liquid. The liquid pooled for a bit before starting to move again. This time it formed the silhouette of a petite girl before disappearing. Albedo, Ins turned to face the overseer. My lord, please be at ease. The mind control is gone. Albedo replied swiftly and with care. I see. Ins muttered, taking out a blanket and throwing over the naked Shalltear. He stopped for a moment, seemingly pondering something before turning to me. Citronitas, yes, my lord. I asked, getting into character. Will you check up on Shalltear? What? Why me? I thought. Well, it's not like you can refuse the man's request. Everyone of importance is here. Shalltear really likes Citronitas. I believe that it would do her good if she woke up to the face of her loved one. I do remember Tabula being mad about Pararankino for adding flavor text in Shalltear's bio. However, Pararankino reassured me that the conflict was resolved not long after. Ins thought, reminiscing about the past that was long gone. Very well, my lord. I replied, heading towards the sleeping vampire. I kneeled down to the ground before lifting up the vampire's head gently. Shalltear, I said her name as her eyes started to adjust to the scenery and bright lights. Cit. Citronitas. Shalltear's eyes quickly lit up as she grew a gleaming smile. Within an instant and without warning, she ripped off my mask from my face and chucked it to the side of her. Oh, how I've missed you. She wrapped her arms around my neck and pulled my face towards hers, giving me a deep French kiss. Narrator's POV. The reactions of the floor guardians were quite diverse. Aura covered the eyes of her innocent brother Mare. Cositus was indifferent, huffing cold mist around his mouth. Demiurge had a small, but visible smile forming on his face. How I wonder what a union between Shalltear and Citronides would result in. The archdevil thought. The Plidesmaids that were present bit their lips in jealousy. However, they could do nothing as they were just that. The Plidesmaids. They could never compete with the floor guardians for Citronides's affection. That bitch. Esteth punched an imaginary wall within her head. If Ins wasn't here, her chilly aura would be flaring everywhere. I must get back at that whore? What can I do to make that vampire slut jealous? Spending time with Citronides? But how? I did overhear from some of his assistants that he planned on going on an adventure in the future. Maybe if I joined him. Citronides's mind went blank from the sudden kiss as he heard the faint sounds of grumbling from a certain ice demon. Shalltear finally let go, giving him enough room to breathe. Shalltear, a sudden act like that is quite impolite, no? He questioned. Impolite? What's impolite of a wife to greet her husband? She retorted. Jesus Christ, this is so troublesome. This is why I just don't want to deal with thirsty women. Citronides thought, sighing internally. Citronides, I think you should leave Shalltear alone for a while. Her mind must be confused as to what's happening. Esteth said with scary politeness. Huh. Shalltear's face distorted. And who said that? Blue-haired bitch. Shalltear angrily replied. Citronides dropped Shalltear on the ground before picking up his mask. Lordins, may I please be excused? There are plenty of experiments to conduct back in my lab, he said, wanting to get away from the shitstorm that was about to occur. Very well, you may leave, Citronides. Ins concluded. But Citronides. Both Shalltear and Esteth shouted his name simultaneously, not wanting their husband to leave. Screw this. Greater teleportation. Citronides teleported out of the throne room and into his private chambers, giving him the space he needed to recuperate his thoughts. If I recall, it would take a month before Operation Gehenna takes place. Maybe I should take a trip to the Dragon Kingdom and speed up Nazarick's conquest there. It would certainly make sense as there is wild magic in the area. Besides, I'm curious as to what that area of the map has to offer. Chapter 12, Preparations before departure. A/N, go check out the auxiliary chapter I posted if you want to see what Citronides was supposed to act like. Time skip, 1 day. Narrator's POV. Ins had quite the eventful morning, to say the least. After his battle with Shalltear Bloodfallen, his adventurer persona Momon took credit for slaying the powerful vampire Honyopanayoko. Because of this, Ins and Narbarrel were promoted to Adamantite-ranked adventurers. He and Narbarrel left the Adventurers Guild to head back to Nazarick. Of course, as the duo walked, they left a trail of gossip behind them. While some people were obviously jealous of the pair, most couldn't help but admire Team Darkness. How could a mysterious duo become Adamantite adventurers in 2 weeks? Such a feat was unheard of in history. Just look at Momon's armor. I heard it was all adamantite, said one adventurer, who was eating some breakfast as Darkness passed by. No shit. Of course that's made of adamantite. Only the richest or powerful can afford stuff like that? You think Momon was a king? Another asked. The guy did mention he was on the hunt for 2 powerful vampires that did destroy his residence. It is plausible. And to think he would go to such lengths to slay the creature by traveling here and wanting to kill Honyopanayoko personally. The adventurer mused, sipping a drink. Look at the beautiful princess. Stoic as ever, said a random adventurer. His mouth slightly pooled with excess saliva. Don't you have a girlfriend? Half-jokingly replied another. Humph, the drooling adventurer scoffed. I'm just appreciating beauty. Ins internally sighed at the comments and remarks he heard from the people that he passed. I make up some bullshit story about killing a vampire and people are already speculating stories? I'm just a lonely salaryman who's acting as an overlord who's acting as a hero adventurer. Inside again, this time vocalizing, catching Narbarrel's attention. Is everything alright, Lord Momon? Narbarrel asked, keeping a stoic and emotionless face as she had to keep up her persona in public. I'm fine, Narb. Nabe. Thanks for checking in. However, I must ask. How are you doing? Ins asked back. As a former salaryman, he found it important to check in with his colleagues' feelings. In this case, it was subordinates. Humph, Narbarrel crossed her arms, slightly pouting. These, vermin humans, have no right to catcall me, she said with clear disdain in her voice. Only Citronides is allowed to. Ins retorted half-jokingly. The beautiful princess bit her lip as her cheeks turned a light shade of red. Ins gave a low chuckle which only made Narbarrel blush more. Well, we can use gate now. We're far enough from anyone seeing us, Ins said, stopping in his tracks. Narbarrel followed suit as the skeleton waved his hand in the air to form a purple portal to Nazarick. The pair quickly entered the purple swirl as they changed into their true forms. Is there anything else you need, Lord Ins? Narbarrel asked, turning to face the undead skeleton. As of this moment, no. Ins started. You're dismissed for the day, Narbarrel. If Momon needs to do a quest, just head out with Pandora's actor as I have some office things to do. The Overlord trailed off at the end. Very well, milord. The Pleiades maid said, slightly bowing before walking away to her station. Ah, the Overlord internally sighed, slightly worried that if he vocalized it, every floor guardian would rush to his aid and ask if there was an issue. Though it may have been an exaggeration, such an unlikely situation was possible. There's so much on my plate. There's supposed to be this subjugation test on the nearby lizardmen in 2 weeks briefly mentioned by Demiurge. Like, I didn't know we were doing this until a couple of hours ago? To top things off, there's a possible group of players somewhere in this world that brainwashed Shalltear as mentioned by Citronidas. If Ins had a real biological body, it would be slumped over a desk. Just over 2 weeks ago, Ins, previously Suzuki, was just an ordinary salaryman who logged onto a game long dead. A virtual world where he spent 12 years of his life escaping a dystopian society. His world was run by megacorporations that had ongoing archaeology wars. Just thinking about the past brought on horrible memories. The skeleton, even though he didn't have a real mouth, could still taste unpleasant chemicals that lingered on his non-existent tongue. Synthetic meat that tasted like plastic and left an odd aftertaste. Tangy water from the taps which went through countless filtration systems before it could be drunk. Even though it was horrible, countless people would kill for a position like that. But now, Suzuki was here, in a world where he can see the stars. A world with grass and birds and trees. He was an overlord for the creations he and his friends made in Yggdrasil. Something that he never thought was possible. Ins, noticing that he was standing still and caught up on the past, snapped back to reality. The skeleton simply teleported to his office to ponder and relax there. The office was one of his personal areas where he can break character. He doesn't need to worry about anyone seeing him as they always knock before entering, giving him enough time to get back into character. Ah, some peace. The skeleton thought, leaning back on his chair. Just as Ins leaned on his chair and got comfortable, there was a knock on his office door. You just had to jinx it, didn't you, Suzuki? Getting back into character, Ins called out to the person knocking on his office door. The door creaked open as a figure shrouded in a black cloth became more visible from where Ins sat. The being was Citronidas with his signature white plague doctor mask. Oh fuck, it's Citronidas? AHH, keep your cool. He may be mysterious and possibly knows that you're a clueless salaryman. But you're the overlord of Nazarick? You got this, Suzuki. Ins gave himself a little prep talk before finding the confidence to speak to the homunculus. Hello, Citronidas. Ins greeted the enigma albeit with some caution. Citronidas walked into Ins' office with an average walking pace. His shoes clattered on the pristine marble floor with every step. The door creaked closed behind the plague doctor before he was close enough to be at a good talking distance. Greetings, Lord Ins. Citronidas said. His echoing voice filled the room as he gave a slight bow to the overlord. Though he didn't show it externally, Citronidas's actions only made Ins more nervous. Why, he's so scary. The skeleton internally shouted. There is no need for formalities, Citronidas. Why are you here? Did something pop up? Ins questioned. No, nothing of the sort. Citronidas calmly replied. Instead, I came to ask you if I had your permission to go on an excursion of sorts. This caught Ins' attention. Go on, the skeleton said. As of late, I've been reading reports from Demiurge provided by my assistant, Elena. As I read the reports about the affairs of surrounding countries, one caught my eye. The Dragon Kingdom. The Dragon Kingdom, huh? Isn't that far away? Ins thought to himself. The Dragon Kingdom. Interesting. And why is that, Citronidas? Why not a nation closer by such as the Baharuth Empire? I heard that they had an Imperial Magic Academy. Ins asked, curious as to what the alchemist was thinking. While I was tempted by the idea, I was more interested in wild magic. I heard that their queen, Draudelian Origulus, was able to use the lost art as she has Dragon Lord blood flowing through her. Citronidas finished his explanation. There, that should be enough of a reason. The plague doctor thought. I'm so stupid. Of course Citronidas would want to go through the Dragon Kingdom to study magic that wasn't in Yggdrasil. He must be thinking that I'm such an idiot. Ins was having an internal mental breakdown. But, his emotional nullifier prevented him from doing any rash actions. Furthermore, going to the Dragon Kingdom to set up pawns or gather information will hasten your master plan. Citronidas pressed on. In actuality, Citronidas didn't have a proper plan such as Demiurge where he calculated every potential action of every potential person. For Citronidas, it was more or less a vague checklist of objectives to do which will help set the groundwork for Nazarick's eventual conquest. Master plan? Master plan? Master plan? What master plan? Ins' jaw opened wide open with disbelief and pure shock. Indeed. Ins said, finally finding the confidence to speak. Seeing this happen in real time is hilarious. Citronidas noted in his mind, internally laughing. While I've, already set a plan in motion for the Dragon Kingdom in my, 10,000-year plan, I would like you to elaborate on it so I know that your plan is the same as mine. Ins blurted out, hoping his words were enough to fool the NPC. Fuck. To Citronidas, I probably look clueless. This guy is so clueless. Citronidas internally chuckled. Oh well, I'll play along for the hell of it. In actuality, the plan isn't about conquest. More or less prepping the area and setting up pawns, personas and gathering information to make conquest much easier. Citronidas said with professionalism. Okay, so far so good. I understand what Citronidas is saying so far. Ins thought, carefully listening to every word the alchemist spoke. While there are main objectives to the plan such as studying wild magic and general history, there are other minor objectives that can be done. An example would be setting up a persona. Something similar to Momon the Dark Hero. You plan on being an adventurer in order to enact my plan, right? Ins asked. Precisely, Lord Ins. Your knowledge knows no bounds, Citronides said, pretending to flatter the skeleton as the supreme being he is. Yes, I've gotten something right. Hoo. Ins had a mini celebration with confetti and balloons in his mind. I heard from reports that the Dragon Kingdom is facing troubles against the Beastmen nation. If hypothetically speaking, their best adventurer became a subordinate to a certain overlord, the Dragon Kingdom would be forced to submit. Citronides said, okay, I think I know how this plays out in the future. Though there are definitely more layers to this that I'm not grasping right now, this should be enough to work with. Ins thought in his mind, tapping his fingers on his desk. Establishing an adventurer persona similar to yours will help in your future conquest, both by easing public opinion and making enemies more predictable. An example could be that an enemy player could think they could convince my adventurer persona to betray you, the Plague Doctor added. Indeed. Ins simply replied. So, how will you go about enacting my plan? Will you go along with another denizen of Nazarick? Perhaps an escort of sorts? Ins asked. I would rather if Citronides goes along with another person. I don't know if Citronides could handle an ambush of strong players considering he wasn't created for piking. Ins noted, worried about his friend's creation. It was as if Ins jinxed the words that came out of his mouth. Citronides was about to speak when there was a barrage of frantic knocking at the office door. Like if two people were using their hands to knock on the door for the life of them. Oh, for God's sake. Don't tell me it's who I think it is that's doing that. Citronides thought. Ins didn't even get to ask who and why someone was knocking on his office door in such a way when the door exploded from the pressure. In its place lay two very attractive females that fell to the floor. One which was petite and had silver hair while the other was more mature with icy blue hair. Why is Shalltear and Esteth here? Ins wondered, confused as to what was happening. Citronides. They both exclaimed in unison. Take me with you. Shalltear shouted, using one of her spare arms to grasp against Esteth's throat. Bullshit. Esteth instantly shouted. Citronides, take me with you on your excursion. The Ice General pleaded. Esteth, Shalltear, please collect yourselves. Ins said, trying to control the unknown situation. Certainly, my lord. The ladies said in unison again, standing upright and putting their hands behind their backs. Now, Ins put a hand on his head. Will you please tell me why you've broken my door? Ins asked. The colors on Shalltear and Esteth's faces drained, realizing that in their fight, they've upset the Supreme One. We're so very sorry for breaking down your door, master. However, it was of the utmost importance. Shalltear said, trying to convince the skeleton. Indeed, Esteth agreed with the words spoken by the petite vampire. I heard that my beloved was going out on an adventure and figured that he needed a companion. The Ice General said with passion. So they broke down my door in the hopes of being Citronides's adventure buddy? Really? Ins thought, half shocked by the situation. And just when I thought I was getting some alone time from all this mayhem. Citronides internally sighed again. I'm not sure how this lamprey found out about your plans, Citronides. But, if you must choose a companion, choose me. Esteth exclaimed with pride in her voice. No, you don't even know how to satisfy the needs of a man? You're just a virgin like that succubus gorilla. I could go on for days without getting tired. Shalltear said as an aura of red surrounded her. Watch your tone, little girl. Esteth retorted. An opposite icy blue aura surrounded her. I'm just saving myself for the day we get married. Besides, all you know how to do is stuff that spewit lance of yours up your asshole. Esteth shouted with twice the fury, which only pissed off the vampire more. Ladies, please keep yourselves at a professional standard in front of the Supreme One. Citronides interrupted the mini feud between the two ladies. Esteth and Shalltear immediately ceased their actions, making Ins internally sigh as he didn't need to intervene. So, both of you want to be Citronides's companion on his adventure to the Dragon Kingdom? Ins asked. Yes, my lord. The ladies said in unison. I'm just worried about Citronides as he could be targeted by enemy players as he took their world item. Shalltear justified. Please, Shalltear is in no position to make demands after getting brainwashed. It's all her fault anyways. Citronides should choose me as I'm specialized in AoE. Esteth replied. The pair gave menacing stares filled with malice toward each other. AoE? Citronides could basically do the same with his magical skills. And what if a player comes? I could deal with the threat with ease. Shalltear said with spite. You can't even control blood frenzy. You'll go berserk the moment you see a player? Think smarter, not harder? Fucking dumbass. Esteth retorted, crossing her arms. Shouldn't I get a say in this? Citronides thought. Ins, who was listening in on both pleas of the floor guardians, was thinking rather carefully. If I let Shalltear go with Citronides, Esteth gets sad. But, the same thing happens if I choose Esteth. My lord, while I appreciate my colleagues worried about me, I must note that I work best alone. Citronides said, making both Esteth and Shalltear pout. But my lord enough. Ins shouted, making the room silent. Sorry for my outburst. But, I've made my decision. Ins said. Esteth, Shalltear, and even Citronides grew nervous from the anticipation. Citronides, normally I would have let you go on your own. However, due to circumstances, I believe that having both Esteth and Shalltear as your companions would be beneficial to your safety. Ins stated with authority. There, problem solved? That will make both Esteth and Shalltear happy? Citronides will also be guarded by two very powerful beings in case of a sudden attack. I can't risk losing the only known way of getting prismatic ore in the new world. Besides, Esteth and Shalltear are his lovers, right? That should make him happy. Ins concluded. No, 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 no. This can't be happening. I'll be surrounded by not one but two thirsty women for at least 2 weeks? Why? If Citronides were alone, he would curl up into a ball and groan. Shalltear and Esteth are such a pain in the back to deal with. They have no clue what self-control is. Yes. Esteth and Shalltear shouted with joy as they ran towards the plague doctor and hugged him tightly, with Esteth hugging from behind and Shalltear from the front. Though it wasn't the most ideal situation, Shalltear and Esteth were able to spend more time with Citronides. Oh, how I can't wait to explore the outside world with you, darling. Shalltear said with pure glee. All you'll be doing is waiting outside a hotel room as we have sex. You're the more powerful NPC, right? You should be guarding us against players. Esteth said, forming a wild smirk from checkmating the petite vampire. Shalltear only growled. I bet you can't even make Citronides feel any pleasure, virgin. Shalltear shouted. This was what I was talking about. Citronides internally sighed. Teleportation. The plague doctor freed himself from the tight grasp of the two floor guardians as he appeared somewhere else in the room. Esteth, Shalltear, please refrain from doing such actions in front of the Supreme One, he said, acting professional and polite. Though sad, both Esteth and Shalltear reluctantly agreed, stopping their arguments. Understood, Lord Ins. Thank you for looking out for my safety. It is much appreciated. The alchemist said, slightly bowing. It is not a problem, Citronides. I presume you'll be back in about 2 weeks when we subjugate the lizardmen, yes? Ins questioned. Precisely, my lord. Given that Esteth and Shalltear were added last minute, I'll give them a day to prepare an adventurer costume to accompany me, Citronides added, taking a glance at a blushing Shalltear and Esteth. This is gonna be a pain. Q. Don't worry, Citronides, as I've already prepared an outfit for such an occasion, Shalltear said with a smile. Esteth's eye slightly twitched at Shalltear's words before speaking. Yes, I too have an outfit, she said, trying to sound confident. Hey, I've one-upped the whore yet again, Shalltear thought, internally celebrating. Well, in that case, you're all dismissed. I'll call in one of the maids to fix the door after you all leave, Ins replied, wanting the conversation to end quickly in order for these monsters to leave his office. Certainly, my lord, the floor guardians said together. Citronides gave a slight bow before exiting the room with them. Ah, that was so scary. I wonder how Citronides handles so many women like that. I should learn a lesson from him when it comes to his sister, Albedo, Ins thought, organizing a stack of papers on his desk. Meanwhile, Citronides was dealing with 2 very thirsty women. So Citronides, I was wondering if, hypothetically speaking, there were only 2 beds, who would you sleep with? Esteth asked, holding one of his arms between her breasts. Esteth, firstly, can you please stop dragging my arm into your breasts? It is quite unprofessional. Huh? Citronides is a fan of flat chests? I knew my lord's wisdom was right. Big chests may fill a man's hands but flat ones fill a man's heart. Suck on that, virgin. Shalltear exclaimed with pride. Though Esteth was clearly angered by Shalltear's words, she put aside her wrath for Citronides. To answer your second question, Citronides paused, thinking about what to say next. Esteth and Shalltear started to get nervous from his silence. I'm a homunculus, so I don't sleep for long periods of time. And, hypothetically speaking, if I needed to sleep, I could just use the ring of sustenance. The pair only grumbled seeing that their question failed. I'll find a way to seduce darling. He's just playing hard to get. They both thought in unison. Sigh, only God can save me now. I pray to the being that sent me here to have mercy. How about sex? I'll wholeheartedly pleasure you with all my being, Shalltear said with pride. I'm going to the Dragon Kingdom to study and analyze magic. Not to have sex, Citronides stated, this time with more authority in his voice. Esteth smirked at seeing her rival get shot down. Shalltear only grumbled at seeing Esteth smirk. Well, I best be going now, ladies. I have work to finish before we depart tomorrow, Citronides said, stopping in his tracks and waiting for the duo to let go of his arms. Of course, it wasn't as easy as he hoped it would be. Esteth and Shalltear only held his arms tighter. But Citronides, we've only been together for such a short amount of time, Shalltear shouted. Esteth only nodded, giving puppy eyes. At least go on a date with me seeing that we're close to the restaurants, she exclaimed. Sigh, these girls are desperate, huh? Citronides thought. It was then Citronides realized something. Hold up. Didn't Albedo try to violate Ins in like season 3 because she became desperate? Oh, fuck. I've been avoiding Esteth and Shalltear for the past 2 weeks. Now we're going to be fucking alone with them for 2 weeks. Why have I just realized this now? A/N, because I'm a bad writer and a dumbass XD. I'll just hope that none of them does anything rash. Citronides's thoughts trailed off before focusing on the crazy women beside him. Well, I do appreciate the offer. But, I do have to get going with tomorrow's preparations, Citronides said, making the pair frown. Well, if you persist. Then, that is fine with me. Esteth trailed off in defeat. Very well, if that is what you want, darling. I should go prepare for tomorrow's trip also, Shalltear stated. So, we've come to an agreement. I like to see that. See you, ladies, tomorrow. Citronides said his goodbyes. Teleportation. With the cast of a spell, Citronidas vanished from thin air and appeared in his alchemy lab, slightly startling the assistants. Lord Citronidas, is everything all right? Rimuro asked with sincerity. Yes, everything is fine. Plenty of things are happening. So, while I'm gone during my excursion, you and the others will oversee lab activities, Citronidas stated. Very well, my lord, Rimuro said, bowing before returning to her duties. Seeing that's done, I should prepare an outfit. Scene change. Teleportation. Citronidas disappeared from thin air, leaving Esteth and Shalltear to their own devices. Citronidas leaving was all your fault, Esteth shouted. My fault? My fault? What did I do? Shalltear rebuked. Damn slut. All you know is sex. No shit. I was created this way by the wise Lord Pararonkino. I'll let you know that I was Citronidas's first lover, Shalltear shouted. Really? Esteth rhetorically asked. If that's the case, why do I have permission from Albedo that I could marry him? Huh? The ice demon taunted. Shalltear growled as the pair let their auras fly about, scaring passing by maids. Humph, I have an idea to solve this feud between us, Shalltear said. I'm listening, Esteth coldly replied. During the 2-week trip, whoever seduces Citronidas gets to be first wife. Is that a deal? Shalltear offered. Esteth thought about the idea before reaching out for the vampire's hand. Fine. It's a deal. Chapter 13, The Dragon Kingdom. A/N, if you haven't already, drop a review with feedback. As long as it isn't a 1-star review complaining about Citronidas looking like a generic anime boy, legit a review I got but deleted because it was stupid, I will gladly implement your feedback over new chapters. Just like you're here to read a decent fanfic, I'm here to create an entertaining story and improve my storytelling. Time skip, 3-day. Narrator's POV. The Dragon Kingdom. A relatively small country with an interesting history. Founded after the fall of the evil deities 200 years ago by Brightness Dragon Lord, it borders the Katsa Plains, the Baharuth Empire, the Theocracy, and the Beastmen Nation. One would expect the country, having been founded by a Dragon Lord, would be a powerhouse due to the access to wild magic. While it is true that their queen, Draudelian Oriculus, does have Dragon Lord blood in her, thus, making her able to use the lost art. The wild magic she can perform is so diluted it is almost useless. Each spell is inefficient and less viable compared to tier magic. It doesn't help that their geography is poor either. Being situated near the edges of the human realm, they're constantly fighting the Beastmen Nation. A nation that sees humans as nothing but either food or walking fleshlights. If it weren't for the interference of the Empire or the Theocracy, the country would have ceased decades ago. Both countries provide military aid to the Dragon Kingdom to keep the Beastmen at bay from outright destroying the kingdom entirely. Though, this relationship isn't out of friendliness or charity. Rather, the Dragon Kingdom's existence is the only thing keeping the massive Beastmen hordes from attacking and destroying the human nations west of the supercontinent. The Beastmen themselves don't bother with full-scale invasions either. While they could take over the Dragon Kingdom in one fell swoop, they choose to be patient. They see the Dragon Kingdom as a replenishing source of food, appearing once every few years, attacking a small village or city before retreating. With the constant skirmishes over the decades, the Dragon Kingdom has always faltered between somewhat peaceful stability to being on the brink of collapse. The Beastmen Nation have already captured 3 major cities of the Dragon Kingdom, holding numerous flesh banquets where they gorge on humans, both alive and dead. So, the nation and its inhabitants have been living in constant fear. The looming threat of being eaten alive by beastmen at any moment has made the country enter a depressed state. It's only a matter of time before the Dragon Kingdom falls to the clutches of the demi-humans. Though, all that was going to change with the appearance of 3 wandering adventurers. Scene change. Fire, explosions, screaming. Those were the things a young boy, no older than 8, witnessed. The boy's name was Daryl, a usually cheerful and bright boy that could make even the most grumpy of men smirk. He was the illegitimate son of a relatively powerful noble. Even though he was a smart child, to preserve his father's status, he and his mother had to be moved to the outskirts of the kingdom. The area itself was relatively peaceful. A small village that was surrounded by a forest with a path to the nearest city which was around a 30-minute jog away. As far as records show, the village where Daryl and his kind mother lived was safe. No beastmen have attacked the place in decades compared to other populated areas of the nation. Sadly, peace never lasts. Out of the blue, a horde of beastmen swarmed the unsuspecting people of the village. Daryl could still hear the desperate words echoed by his mother. Go, Daryl, run while you still can, she screamed, before being dragged away by the claws of beastmen, waiting for her turn to get eaten, not before being used as a living fleshlight by the invaders. Daryl had a huge influx of emotions run over him. Confusion, anger, grief, and sadness to name a few. But, he put all those emotions aside and ran as fast as his little legs could and listened to the dying words of his mother. Specifically, along the dirt path that leads to the nearest city. It felt like an eternity passed as Daryl kept running away from the small village, though it was most likely only a few minutes at most. The little town got to a point where you couldn't see it from how far Daryl had run. Even so, Daryl kept on running. It got to the point where Daryl's stomach felt like it was being stitched from the constant running. Not having any water with him and having so much stamina for his age were also factors. I need to rest. I'm too tired, the young boy thought, collapsing on the dirt ground. Those thoughts were disrupted when Daryl heard something walk toward him beyond his vision. It definitely wasn't human. The thuds that the person made were too loud and heavy for a human to make. The growling and foul stench only cemented that idea further. The voice was rough and animalistic in nature. A voice that when Daryl heard, made all his hairs jump in fear. Even though he had no energy left in him from the running, the fear from adrenaline made him jump to his feet. The beastman himself was that of a tiger. Standing at a menacing 8 feet in height, he wore only cloth around his waist, leaving the rest of his body exposed. His muscles were compact and huge as if the entire beastman's body was only made from muscle. Such a sight would put any bodybuilder to shame. You made quite the distance from running, a little human, the tiger beastman said. His tone was filled with mockery as if taunting Daryl about how little a distance he ran. Why you? Daryl trailed off. His pants started to moisten as a golden liquid trailed down his leg. I must admit, your mother was amazing. The tiger continued, watching the tears roll down Daryl's eyes. The fear in her eyes when I ripped those clothes off her. The screams and blood when I violated her. Too bad she died only a minute after I started. The tiger said with sadness. Though that sadness the tiger had was fake. M-monster. You M-monster. Daryl shouted with a fit of untamed anger. But, to the tiger beastman, such anger was amusing. He. Ha 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 ha. The beastman roared. Oh, the confidence? You humans truly amaze me. No matter how much we beastmen attack, you resist with this shield of confidence you surround yourself with. The tiger beastman said. Though, the tiger beastman paused slightly. I will enjoy breaking that shield of yours and watching you fall into despair, he said. You'll pay. You'll pay, monster. Daryl shouted with spite and fury. Pay? Me? Who's gonna make me pay? Those gods you worship? Maybe those soldiers my men have already eaten? No. Nobody is going to save you. The beastman took a step closer to the still Daryl. His step made a small thud sound, imprinting his paw onto the ground from his sheer weight. Daryl's confidence ceased immediately, though he hated to admit it. The beastman was right, there was nobody that could help him. The tiger beastman, seeing the wobbly legs of the child, gave a wicked grin of satisfaction. There it is. The moment of realization. He exclaimed. How does it feel? Tragic? Sad? Like the world is crashing down around you? He asked, waving his hands in the air, taunting Daryl. There was nothing Daryl could do. Beastmen are naturally superior compared to humans when it comes to physical biology. Sure, Daryl could run for a few seconds but the beastman would catch up in an instant. He had no way of defending himself. Even if he did, it would have done nothing against the tiger in front of him. Daryl could have only prayed for some miracle. Please, anyone, save me, he said in his head, over and over again, like a mantra. The beastman stepped closer, enjoying the suffering of the little boy every second. Closer and closer until the beastman was right in front of the child, towering over him. The oozing drool that came from the tiger's mouth dripped on Daryl's head, though the color of the saliva wasn't its typical translucent color. Instead, it was tinted with a red color, as if he had been chewing on something earlier, such as blood. With ease, the tiger beastman picked up Daryl with his hands, elevating Daryl to his own level. Those tears, they look delicious, he said, licking his lips. You look just like your mother from earlier. I'll never forget the sheer terror on her face the moment I said I'll be hunting you. I'll admit, I've never quite seen anything like that in my decades of life, he said in a low growl. Daryl could do nothing but cry and uselessly thrash around with the hope of some miracle. Let go of me? Let me go, monster. How dare you kill my mother like that? What did she ever do to you? He shouted, blinded by rage. The tiger seemed to chuckle before bringing the boy closer to his mouth. Daryl, seeing the inevitable coming, closed his eyes and thought about happy memories. The times when he and his mother sang songs together, or how he played tag with the other village kids, a game introduced to humanity by the great gods. Daryl expected some sort of pain, possibly a pain where his arm would be or a sort of dizziness. However, that never came to be. In fact, the tight grip from the beastman that was about to eat him loosened, making him fall butt first to the ground. Confused, Daryl slowly opened his eyes only to be met with a strange sight. The tiger beastman that was about to eat him was foaming in the mouth. But how was that possible? Just a moment ago, the beastman was perfectly fine and about to eat him. Daryl had no time to think as the beastman started to spasm frantically. His arms and legs gave in on themselves, knocking the mighty tiger to the dirt floor. Grumbles and whimpers could be faintly heard if close enough but quickly stopped. What? Daryl said with shock and awe. Did the great gods spare him? Had a miracle fallen upon himself? But what had a humble boy, the illegitimate son of a noble, do to deserve a second chance? Daryl had no time to think as he looked around, trying to spot any clues as to what happened. And then, he saw them. From the forest came 3 beings. From appearance, Daryl could only assume that the one at the front was their leader while the 2 behind them were his companions. The leader was a male. There was no denying that. However, his outfit was out of the ordinary. Something Daryl had never seen in the storybooks read to him by his mother. Daryl could only compare it to a suit of armor. The man wore an all-white set of armor that plated the most vital of areas such as the helmet, chest piece, gauntlets, and legs. In places that weren't covered by the protective metal was an unknown fabric-like material. There were also trims of blue on the man's outfit for details. The woman on his left wore a mixture of dark and gray tones. Though, there was no visible armor. When Daryl saw her, he could only think of the word Gothic princess. The shades of black and white contrasted, yet complemented her blonde hair. Oddly enough, the woman was half the height of the male. Furthermore, the lady also had a black toe fat, umbrella, and blindfold. If the woman on the left could be described as a Gothic princess, the woman on the right could only be described as a cold beauty. The lady's white hair and skin reminded Daryl about the snow on the mountains and the stories of frost dragons. Even though she was around 50 meters away, Daryl could feel the chill on his skin just by looking at her. The thrashing beastmen had long since stopped moving as the unknown trio moved closer toward the boy. Of course, Daryl, even though thankful, still had plenty of unanswered questions. Who are these people? How could someone just kill a beastman? Let alone a tiger beastman from that far away? Are they messengers from God? Powerful adventurers or mercenaries? Daryl thought. His childish, yet mature mind raced for possible solutions. Yet, couldn't find any. To think such a beastman would be so weak, muttered the man in the metal mask. Humph, the princess huffed, crossing her arms. It is to be expected. Humans are we. She was cut off from speaking when the leader put a hand on her shoulder, slightly tightening his grasp. The average human isn't suited for combat against beastmen. The princess corrected herself, recognizing her error. Who are YYU, people? Daryl couldn't help but ask. Where are my manners? Exclaimed the metal-masked man. My name is Orden Carries. The lady to my left is Valkyrie while the one to my right is Elsa. The person, now known as Orden Carries, stated in a calming tone. We're adventurers from the Far East that left our country to explore the world. Orden continued. But, isn't the East where humans are considered food? There are only monsters the further east you go, Daryl stated. Adventurers from the East? Is that even possible? There are no books about a human nation that far away. At least that's what is said from the books my father gave me, Daryl thought. Our country had an isolationist mindset and didn't open up to the rest of the world. After the era of the Greed Kings, our country realized that the outside was dangerous. So, they kept to themselves for the most part. Elsa replied. Believing the words of the Ice Beauty, Daryl nodded. Tell me, why was that beastman chasing you? Valkyrie questioned, twirling her umbrella in the air. He wanted to eat me, Daryl said, sobbing after every couple of words, remembering the death of his mother. So beastmen are the same even this far west, huh? Orden muttered to himself. Your parents? He asked. My father is a noble of the D-Dragon Kingdom. However, my mother told me that I'm illegitimate. Thus, I had to be sent far away so my dad wouldn't lose his good reputation. As for my mother, she died because of that beastman, Daryl said. There was a moment of silence before Orden spoke again. Are there still beastmen attacking your little village right now? He asked, to which Daryl nodded furiously. I must say, for a child of your age to act so maturely in a situation like this is quite rare. You're handling this well, Orden noted. Anyways, enough idle chit-chat. Let's go save whatever bunch of people are alive, Orden said, giving a glance towards his companions to his left and right. Remember, make this quick and make sure you limit yourselves. Understood, Orden said in a low yet threatening whisper. Low enough for the small child to not hear him. Understood, C.I. Orden Carries. They said, casting teleportation and vanishing in thin air. As the duo teleported away, Orden Carries, or Citronitas, came closer to Daryl, kneeling on the ground. The nearest city isn't too far. Is that right? Citronitas asked. Daryl nodded as a few tears came out of his eyes. Don't worry about your village. My companions are very capable humans. Citronitas reassured the kid. That spell which killed the beastman. What was it? Daryl asked, curious about what happened moments prior. Just a 5th tier spell. Nothing too special that warrants any interest. However, the tiger beastman did suffer a significant amount of pain before perishing. Somehow, those words made Daryl's mind go at ease. Although only slightly. 5th tier? This adventurer must be powerful. It is no wonder how he can kill a tiger beastman with one spell, Daryl thought. I wonder if he is more powerful than Flood or Paradine in the Empire. He's well over 200 years old and can only cast 6th tier magic. Earlier, you told me your father was a noble. You think he's willing to take you back in? Citronitas questioned. Well, Daryl seemed to pause, thinking about the situation. While he does care for me, sending myself and mother to a relatively safe village, I'm not sure, considering that I'm illegitimate, he might just throw me to the streets, Daryl said with sadness. More tears fell down his cheek as he realized that he had nowhere to go. Poor kid. If his father doesn't take him back, he's probably going to have to stay in an orphanage. Citronitas concluded. Don't worry about it, kid. There's a saying from where I come from. Though most likely long forgotten, it still holds some meaning. The saying is life finds a way. You'll figure things out. I won't doubt that, Citronitas stated, hugging the child close, consoling him. Daryl took the hug with ease, tightening his grip around the adventurer. Sir Carry please, just call me Orden. Citronitas corrected the boy. Orden, do you think I'll ever be as strong as you? I couldn't defend myself against that beastman, Daryl said with sadness. Well, from what I can tell, you do have the potential to be strong. I mean, look at you now. You're relatively educated and well-mannered. With time, I believe you can be strong enough to defend those you love, Citronitas said, easing the mind of the child more. I wonder how Esteth and Shalltear are doing. They better not be causing any trouble. Though, I doubt that considering they're bickering about who's better. Citronidas thought, now starting to doubt his actions for sending such unpredictable people to complete the task he assigned them. Scene change. Valkyrie and Elsa, or Shalltear, and Esteth teleported to the besieged village. The houses, which were normally standing, were nothing but a pile of rubble. At a glance, one could assume the area was deserted. However, there were still plenty of beastmen in the area, feasting on the flesh of humans. It was clear by the animalistic laughing and the cries of pain not too far away. Humph. I can't believe that you almost blew Darling's cover, Esteth said, jabbing at Shalltear's mess up. Shalltear only gave a low growl. Shut up, icy slut. Let's just save these humans and get back to our beloved. The vampire retorted. At least we can get to some sort of agreement, Esteth noted. The duo walked further, heading towards the beastmen, who were coincidentally collected together in a group. If any normal person walked in on such a sight, even the most stoic human would have felt woozy. The collective beastmen were partaking in heinous actions. Some were pleasuring themselves by violating women, most of which were on death's row or already deceased. Others were torturing men in all kinds of ways, inflicting wound upon wound to being roasted alive by the semi-big makeshift fireplace in the center. Oi, 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 what do we have here? Said one of the beastmen in a gruff voice, catching the attention of his peers. More women? And by the looks of it, gorgeous ones at the beastman was cut off from speaking by a certain ice demon. Shut your fucking mouth up. Who gave you the right to speak to me, vermin? Esteth said, clearly angered by the words of the demi-human. Oh, feisty. Personally, I like a fucktoy like that. The faces they make when they realize they're out of luck is just amazing. Another beastman joined. Shalltear twirled her umbrella, yawning. This is so boring. Let's kill these weakling mutts, Elsa. Shalltear's words only angered the beastmen as some stood up and growled. Why? You watch Yodesh. The beastman that spoke out was interrupted by Esteth raising her hand. Ice lance. Esteth said in a cold tone as a lance made entirely out of ice formed in the air. Just as quickly as it formed, the lance shot at a lightning speed towards the open mouth of the talking beastman. The demi-human had no time to react as the lance entered his mouth, exiting from the other end with relative ease. The beastman fell to the floor, motionless due to having a sharp object creating a gaping wound through his skull. The people that were alive were awed by the death of one of the beastmen, their eyes filled with hope at the thought of not dying a gruesome death. What the fuck? Why are you just standing there? Do something, shouted the leader of the beastman group who had animal traits akin to an ox. While some beastmen were hesitant, seeing one of their comrades die so quickly, others were more riled up. How dare you fuckers? Shouted one beastman, jumping from where he was towards the duo. Of course, a few more beastmen followed suit. Shalltear sighed before conjuring up a red and black lance and heading directly towards the beastman onslaught. To anyone that watched, it was a sight to behold. Of course, nobody expected the small woman who wielded a lance to actually win. She was up against powerful beastmen who could ravage cities. However, that wasn't the case at all. There wasn't even a climactic battle filled with blood, sweat, and tears. With a simple wave of her weapon, Shalltear cut the demi-human beasts in half. Their organs and blood spewed everywhere like a bloody fountain, soaking the ground in a dark red. What? How is that possible? Thought the ox beastman, startled by how his men were killed with ease. And by unknown humans at that. What? How? He shouted. It is simple. You're weak, Esteth said emotionlessly. Screw this. Everyone, kill those bastards. He screamed at the top of his lungs, not wanting to be insulted anymore. All the beastmen heeded the words of the leader as they gripped their weapons and prepared for battle. Some were excited to fight while others were more cautious. Nonetheless, they each got into a stance to attack. Attack! The beastman leader shouted. The other beastmen shouted a war cry at the words. Esteth and Shalltear were unfazed, taking a more casual stance. Maximize magic, ice barrage. With the chant of a spell, multiple shards of ice formed in the air. And with a wave of her hand, the shards flew at breathtaking speeds towards vital areas of the beastman. The leg joints, the head, and the heart were all hit multiple times as the beastmen fell one by one. To the remaining human survivors that were clinging to dear life, it wasn't even a fight. Beastmen who were able to attack multiple trained soldiers in battle fell with ease. Their cries of pain were muffled from choking on their own blood. The prideful leader, who was consumed by rage, gulped. He didn't want to admit it. His demi-human pride wouldn't allow him to. But, for the first time in his life, he was scared. How is this possible? I need to leave, he concluded, quickly turning back and fleeing. Sadly, he was immediately stopped when Shalltear appeared right behind him. Where do you think you're going, mutt? She asked sweetly. However, that only scared the leader even more. No, stay away from me, he shouted. Mao, that's too bad. My darling wants this to end quickly. You should be grateful that I of all people am ending your life so quickly. I would have enjoyed breaking that false pride of yours, Shalltear said. The beastman leader didn't get to reply as his head was decapitated by a simple swing of Shalltear's lance. Well, that's taken care of. Clean. Shalltear cast a spell that cleaned her lance from the blood of the demi-human before walking back to his death. We're supposed to free the remaining humans, right? She questioned. No shit, Valkyrie, Esteth said, correcting herself. Wanting to get back to their beloved, the duo walked up to any surviving humans. While most were already dead, some were faintly breathing. Shalltear, with the help of her cleric class, cast a simple healing spell that healed the injuries of those without limbs or serious burns. My hand? Thank you, kind stranger. May I know of your name? Asked a woman, her voice filled with gratitude from not only being saved, but from being healed also. An injury like that would have cost thousands of gold which, as a peasant village girl, did not have access to. It is nothing. I'm just doing my job as an adventurer. I'm Valkyrie, Shalltear said, doing her best to get into character. Valkyrie, please accept my gratitude, the peasant village girl said, bowing her head as tears fell down her cheek. It's not a problem, Shalltear muttered. As death only freed those who were in metal cages or those in bindings, ripping the iron bars like simple sticks of wood. Thank you, said a man, sobbing his heart out. Yeah, not a problem, Esteth replied back, trying her best to act sincerely for the pathetic mortals. After freeing the remaining survivors from their bindings, Esteth and Shalltear returned to where Citronides was. Of course, the survivors, seeing that their small village was in ruins, followed the pair. Elsa, Bathory, how was the fight? Citronides asked, getting into character. It was fine, Orden. The beastmen were dealt with and the survivors were healed. Esteth noted. That's good. I see that the remaining survivors are behind you. I guess they're heading to the city considering that their village was destroyed. No, Citronides questioned. That's right, milord. We have nowhere else to go, so, for temporary safety, we're heading to the city to tell the higher UPS about the attack, replied one of the villagers. That's fine by me. We need to head to the city to register in the Adventurers Guild and collect information about the place. Citronides said. Oh, you can drop the milord part. No need for formalities. Just call me Orden. Very well, Orden. We cannot stress how much we mean to you and your companions. You saved our lives, said the villager. The others agreed, nodding in unison. I appreciate the kind words. However, I believe that it's time to head to the city. We shouldn't stay here too long, Citronides replied. And so, Citronides, leading Esteth, Shalltear and the surviving villagers headed towards the nearest city of the Dragon Kingdom, talking on the way. It didn't take too long to reach the gates of the city. What was interesting was the fortifications. Towering walls of stone with soldiers patrolling on top of them. So this is the Dragon Kingdom, huh? Citronides thought. It makes sense that there would be some fortifications around cities. Considering that beastmen attacks could happen at any moment, it is to be expected. Hello, guards, we'd like to enter the city of yours. Chapter 14, The City of Cleus. Hello, guards, we'd like to enter the city of yours, I said. My voice echoed with the mask I wore, catching the attention of the guards on the walls. The guards, curious, glanced at me before noticing a rather unique group of people. Of course, there was me with Esteth and Shalltear. Daryl was holding my hand as a child would. Though I was at the very front of the group, I could feel the jealous gazes of the duo. There was also the remaining number of villagers at the back, creating the main bulk of the group. Alex, is that you? Said one of the guards in a rather loud voice, shocked at the appearance of one of the villagers. There were no visible wounds such as scars. Shalltear made sure of that. It was the dried up tears along with the red eyes that shocked the guard. Pretty much every villager was like that after experiencing the beastman attack. What the hell happened? Never mind that. Open the gates. The guard shouted towards his colleagues behind him. We all headed into the city once the gates fully opened. Right after, a few of the guards rushed towards us, and rightfully so. The guard that shouted the command seemed to know one of the villagers quite well. Most likely old friends or relatives considering the worry the guard expressed. Hey, Jackson. It's been a while, said the villager named Alex. You looked like total shit, brother. What happened to you? Where's your wife? It was as if the guard was shooting a machine gun. Rapid-firing question after question, not letting his brother reply once. Alex only looked to the ground, clenching his fists as if trying his best not to cry. Seeing his brother act in such an unusual way, the guard looked toward me. Excuse me, but, do you can I raised my hand, stopping the guard from speaking any further. There was a beastman attack on the village not too far away from here. My group was lucky to have been in the area to save the remaining inhabitants. It was as if time froze in place. The villagers only looked away and held their tears back from the grim memories. The facial expressions of the guards spoke for themselves. Their eyes darkened as their hands shook from fear. Beastman? You're not kidding, right? One of the guards asked, his legs shaking from the information. I wish I was. Though my companions dealt with the beastmen with ease, the village was damaged beyond repair. So, we headed here where things are hopefully safer and to house the villagers. At least temporarily. I replied. This is urgent, muttered one of the guards. No, this has to be a lie. There hasn't been a beastman attack here in decades. Jackson bit the side of his lip, realizing the fate that his brother's wife had faced. Okay, listen up, guards. Jackson shouted, putting his sadness aside and focusing on the dangerous task ahead. His tone was now authoritarian compared to his previous soft and worry-filled voice. He pointed to a small collection of guards, 5 in total. Take the surviving villagers to a safe place which can provide food and shelter, he said, pointing to a small collection of guards. Yes, Captain. The guards said with professionalism. The villagers, who were listening in keenly, heeded the words of the captain as they followed the guards wherever they took them, presumably to a refugee or relocation zone somewhere in the city. To the rest of you, go back to your stations and be on alert at all times. These people may have dealt with the beastmen. However, it is better to be prepared for another possible attack than to be caught off guard. Is that clear? Yes, Captain. The rest of the guards scurried off back to their previous positions with haste from Jackson's orders. Oddly enough, Daryl, who was still holding my hand, gripped tighter, refusing to let go. I knelt to his level so we were both facing each other. Daryl, you should follow the guards just like the others, I calmly said. But I don't wanna. The child slightly pouted as I felt two sharp gazes in my direction. I turned my head around to face his death and Shalltear. Though there was a mask that covered my face, they could tell that I wasn't happy. So, they reverted their jealousy elsewhere. If you're worried about not being able to see me again, you're wrong. Besides, if your father throws you to the streets, I'll have strong words with him, I said, seemingly brightening Daryl's face as he nodded and rushed towards the villagers, now some distance away. The rather large collective of people quickly dispersed as only 4 people, including myself, remained. I got back up from the ground to face Jackson, the captain of the guards, who was patiently waiting. I presume you wanted to talk to us, Captain? Esteth questioned, finally speaking after not saying anything since the village. Well, yes, I suppose so considering the current situation, said the captain, hesitating at the beginning but gaining confidence the more he spoke. Huh? The guy was giving out orders just a moment ago. Is he nervous? That could be the case as beastmen did attack that village. I could tell Shalltear was going to say something, so I put my hand on her shoulder before she did anything rash. Please, Valkyrie, let me deal with the talking, I said half politely and half seriously. Shalltear gave a low grumble from my response. Luckily, Jackson didn't pick up on her mumbles. As the guard captain of this city, it is my responsibility to keep this place safe. And, considering that you killed a group of beastmen near the village, I need to collect information so I can pass it on to the mayor, who can give the information to the governing body of the Dragon Kingdom, Jackson stated. Well, that certainly isn't an issue, I replied, somewhat relieving some stress off the captain. However, I took a slight pause, making the captain tense yet again. My companions and I would like some information in return. You see, we're adventurers from the Far East that wanted to explore the western region. A map, the location of an adventurer's guild and an inn would be quite beneficial to have and / or know about, right? Why, of course, Jackson said, as if what I mentioned was obvious and not up for debate. Something trivial like that is the least I can do for you 3. After all, you helped save my brother from certain death. Me showing you around is the least I can do to return the favor, he continued. Great, now we have that sorted, let's discuss things elsewhere. I do believe it wouldn't be ideal to talk about serious matters at the gates of a city. Am I right, Captain? I asked. No need for titles. Please, call me Jackson, Jackson asked. In that case, you can call me Orden. The woman with white hair is Elsa while the one with a face mask is Valkyrie. I gave a simple introduction as Jackson nodded his head, agreeing to my request. Follow me. As you're all new to the area, I'll show you where the nearest inn is located. We can talk on the way there. Esteth and Shalltear kept their mouths shut throughout the whole ordeal. I'm not sure whether that's a good or bad thing, but at least they didn't do any rash actions. This city and the village, what are their names? I've just been referring to the city and village as city and village, I said with simple honesty. I guess I haven't told you, have I? Jackson asked. Well, the city is called Cleus while the village was called Karka. Funnily enough, there's an interesting reason for such names. Are you interested in a story? Jackson asked. I'm all in for stories. I want to learn more about the area. Well, the reason for the name Cleus was because it was the last name of a powerful and respected noble that lived around 180 years ago. Karka, the village roughly 30 minutes away, was the name of Cleus's secret love interest. Jackson started. How did that secret come out? I don't know. The answer most likely being lost to history. The captain cleared his throat before continuing. Anyways, the powerful noble met and eventually fell in love with a simple peasant girl. Sadly, due to his pristine image as a noble, he couldn't outright marry her. So, to honor his love for the girl, he established a village in her name to commemorate her. He concluded. What a coincidence. I think it's quite poetic that Daryl's mother was sent to Karka village. Her husband was a powerful noble that had a child with a peasant girl. In order to save face, he sends them here. I thought to myself. A simple, yet sweet story. Personally, I like it. That's what they all say, Jackson said, trailing off at the end of his sentence. There was a brief silence between us as we walked through Cleus. Our boots clattered on the ground before I asked another question. I can't help but pick up on passive conversation. But, from what I've gathered from talking to the villagers, beastmen attacks here are rare. Nay, non-existent would be a better term. Why is that? Surely the beastmen would have sieged this place more often. With surrounding vegetation, beastmen attacks would be hard to fend off. I asked my first question, genuinely curious about the geography of Cleus and Karka. Jackson turned his head to face us. A confused expression plastered across his face as he was slightly taken aback by what I said. You don't know about the wastelands within the Beastmen nation? Well, that is understandable considering you're from the Far East. Did you cross through the Great Minotaur Nation and then the unclaimed land that borders southeast of the Dragon Kingdom? This is new. Oh, the past self within me is dying for answers. Do tell me more, Jackson. No, from where we came, there were no records of such a place called the Wastelands. Our nation had an isolationist mindset. They kept to themselves and ignored outside forces after the Greed Kings destroyed most of their kingdom. I used the fictional story I told Daryl to Jackson, adding a few extra details to make the story more believable. And for your second question, we crossed through the unclaimed land which bordered a country called the Great Kingdom of the Pablesag, I concluded. Oh, that's quite interesting. You must have come really far. To my limited knowledge, that country is probably bigger than Riestai's, the Baharuth Empire and the Theocracy combined. Though, that's probably an exaggeration as nobody bothers to venture there and confirm those claims. With our beastmen issue. Jackson continued to talk. Anyways, back to the Wastelands. It's a small region within the Beastmen nation that lies adjacent to the area surrounding Cleus and Karka. The reasons why the Beastmen don't just cross the Wastelands and into our territory are simple. Jackson took a slight pause to collect his breath from his constant speaking. Though significantly smaller than the Dolor Desert south of the Theocracy and the Elven Kingdom, it's easily twice as deadly. The area is nigh impossible to traverse. Hotter than the flames of a dragon, walking through the Wastelands would be a death sentence. Your clothes would heat up instantly and give nasty burns when touching your skin. It doesn't help that there's no water source for miles on end. The heat would do its best to dehydrate you of any fluids within your body. Sure, there are magical and racial resistances to negate these troubles. However, the Wastelands are inhabited by very powerful monsters, both enemies to humans and beastmen. At least that's what I was told by the books and records of fallen explorers. Fighting in such harsh conditions would be a waste of resources and plain stupid. My, that area seems quite an intriguing place. I commented, thinking about the area. Such a place wasn't mentioned back in the series. Indeed. But, I don't recommend going there with those harsh conditions. However, the Wastelands weren't always like that. Jackson offhandedly noted. Oh really? Were the Wastelands the result of a powerful curse? A fight, perhaps? I questioned, asking questions to fill my hunger for curiosity. The latter. The reason for such a place to exist was because that small region was the fighting ground for the 13 heroes and the final evil deity known as the God Dragon. Nearly nothing is known about the battle between the two forces. Only that the group defeated the enemy and came out victorious, replied Jackson, clearing his throat at the end of his mini-history lesson. If my faint memory serves me correctly, wasn't the God Dragon mentioned in the web novel? Furthermore, I heard from Reddit that the group lost to the God Dragon. Either my memories are wrong, or the 13 heroes kept that fact a secret from society. Interesting, very interesting. I would have pressed the captain for more information. Sadly, I noticed a building with the capitalized words in my vision. The exterior of the establishment was just like any other building in the area, only that it was taller and stood out slightly more with its different architecture. The outside of the inn looked like any other fantasy inn from an anime or manga. A gray brick base with grand wooden pillars for supports. Plain, yet homely, and welcoming walls of white and beige. Some shrubbery and bushes were on the outside to give a little extra detail. Well, here's the inn I mentioned earlier. I would love to continue to talk to you, Orden. However, as the captain of the city guards, I have a job to do. I must inform the mayor about the beastmen that attacked Karka village and I stopped him from speaking. There is no issue with not helping me anymore, Jackson. You taking time out of your job to take my little group to this inn along with providing information about the area has been more than enough. I said with honest and genuine praise. Before you say it, we will sign in with the nearby Adventurers Guild. That little bit of information made the captain slightly smile. I would do it now, but seeing as it's almost evening with the setting sun, I would prefer to do such a mundane task tomorrow, I concluded. I'll make sure to inform the guild master about what you accomplished back at Karka. Not even Shalltear can kill so many beastmen with such ease. At best, the beastmen are pushed away and sustain minimal casualties. You'll surely get a high rank from the guild once you sign up, Jackson declared. I'm sure you can find the Adventurers Guild by yourself. The building stands out from the rest in the area and isn't too far from here. There's a tavern included within the building, so you can go there to have breakfast, the captain noted. Jackson bowed his head and gave a quick farewell before walking away. Wanting to get on with things, I turned around and entered the inn's entrance. Esteth and Shalltear were quick in pursuit. While not clinging to my arms like a cat, they were close enough that they might as well be. The interior of the inn matched the exterior. It was like walking in an English tavern during the medieval periods, minus the loud cheering of drunk men and the partying. While the lobby was empty, there was a sense of peacefulness from the absence of humans. Directly opposite the inn's entrance were the reception and the receptionist lady. A yellow, handheld lamp was stationed on the wooden counter, only adding to the rustic and medieval theme the building had. The receptionist, seeing us enter, gave us a warm smile and a simple wave. Hello, customers. My name is Sophie. Welcome to my inn. The receptionist, now known as Sophie, greeted us with a calm yet energetic enthusiasm. The type of enthusiasm that you couldn't help but smile at even on a bad day. Sophie was the stereotypical receptionist like in all other fantasy animes, mangas, or novels. She wore long jeans and sleeves that were in the aesthetic of a pseudo-business suit. She also had light brown hair that went slightly past the shoulders and was partially braided. "Greetings, Sophie," I said, meeting her politeness with my own. "We're adventurers if you can't tell by our outfits." I used a hand to gesture at our clothing. "Anyways, we'll be staying in Cleus for quite some time. So, we'll need a dash." I was cut off by two voices to my left and right. "A private room with 2 beds, please," Asteth and Shalltear said in unison. "Hold up, wait a minute, something ain't right. A room with 2 beds? But, aren't there?" "Oh." Sophie's innocent face quickly turned to a shade of red. "Humph, if we acquire a bed for 2, I can have citronitas all to myself while I cuddle my beloved all night long," thought Shalltear, fighting the urge to drool everywhere. "If all goes to plan, I can make love with my darling while Shalltear is forced to watch as I passionately make babies with citronitas. In the end, I'll be his first wife while Shalltear is nothing," concluded Asteth. "Please ignore Elsa and Valkyrie. They don't know what they're talking about. It has been a rather long day for them and they do need their rest. Isn't that right?" I asked. Though the sentence did sound polite, the slight shift in tone contradicted what I said. Thankfully, Sophie didn't pick up on that, still blushing from what the duo mentioned. "This is getting out of hand. I hoped nothing like this was going to happen while in public. They did well while I was with the villagers and the captain. I guess nothing goes as planned, does it? I'll deal with these 2 once we're in our room," I thought to myself, dismissing temporary thoughts. "Oh please, Orden dear," Shalltear said with an odd sweetness, hugging my arm tightly like a clingy cat. Asteth only gave a cold growl as she copied Shalltear's action. "You're always playing hard to get. Don't worry." The ice demoness brought my arm to her breasts as her face drew closer to my ear. Though Shalltear was smaller, thus, not being able to reach my head, she did cast fly. In unison, both women whispered to where my ears were located. If not for my mask and cold resistance, I would have shivered from the chilled wind that came from their mouths. "I'll be gentle." If there was a world record for how red a face could get, that award would have gone to Sophie, who was as red as Kirishima's hair from My Hero Academia. "Ladies, please calm yourselves for when we get our rooms. Now is not the appropriate time for such actions." My tone lost its professional demeanor as what only remained was a sharp voice akin to a strict parent. Instantly, Asteth and Shalltear reverted back to their original positions and ceased their antics. For a split moment, I could have sworn that their hands shook with slight fear. However, they kept a neutral facial expression and pose. I guess putting my foot down does work at times. However, I need to act professional and polite. So, I could probably do that once in a blue moon, I thought to myself. "Sophie," I turned my attention to the blushing receptionist. "Please excuse the antics of my companions along with my outburst. Any secluded room within this fine establishment would be enough for us. Adventurers do like their privacy, do they not?" Why yes. I suppose so," Sophie stuttered out. "There is a vacant room on the T-top floor. Big enough for the 3 of you." She managed to speak through her embarrassment. "Perfect," I simply replied. From my inventory, I pulled out a small, yet loaded pouch full of gold and softly chucked the sack onto the reception desk. "I do believe that the gold within that pouch will cover our stay in this inn. If there are any spare coins, you can keep the rest as change." Confused and skeptical, Sophie opened the pouch filled to the brim with gold coins. "Way." The girl was speechless. Words couldn't formulate in her mouth as her hands started to shake. Well, I guess I was too generous with the gold, I thought. With the financial situation in the Dragon Kingdom, giving the receptionist a pouch of gold coins was like finding water in a desert. Even with the size of the pouch, only nobles or rich merchants here could have access to such wealth. Oh well, no harm in giving extra gold. I can always use create greater item and make endless gold coins, I concluded, walking towards the stairway leading upstairs. Sir, you forgo Elsa, please grab the keys for our room." With a smile, Asteth simply took the keys located in Sophie's hands. Her cold touch made the receptionist temporarily shiver. "Your room is the furthest in the hallway and to the right," Sophie quickly spouted out with haste. "Thanks for the directions. We'll be seeing you tomorrow when we head out to sign in with the guild. Have a good night, Sophie." I said my farewells as I walked toward the top floor of the building. Shalltear and Asteth were quick in pursuit, not wanting to be left behind. We quickly arrived at our room on the top floor. It was nothing extravagant by any means. Hell, even some of the poorer hotels would have looked twice as better in comparison to the room. However, considering the current situation of the Dragon Kingdom, having a room like this one was expected. The beds were simple enough. Numbering 3 in total, each one was a carbon copy of the last. Wooden frames, simple mattresses, and blankets. There was a mirror and some cabinets for storage along with a simple, small room for a toilet. TCH, Asteth made a clicking sound with her tongue. "Of course, humans would live in such filthy accommodations," she said with annoyance. My, what have we here? A complaining Asteth? If you hate these beds so much, no need to use them, right? Just sleep on the floor while I sleep with citronitas," the vampire said in a sly, mocking tone. "All right, listen," I said, making both women cease their petty argument. "So far, you've both been on good behavior. None of you broke character, which is excellent. That means you'll reward me, right? You'll sleep with me and not the vampire whore, right?" Asteth said with an almost frightening enthusiasm akin to a psycho girlfriend. "About the sleeping situation. Instantly, the eyes of Esteth lit up. I could only assume the same for Shalltear if she wasn't wearing her mask. While I do understand your affection for me, and only ignoring your affection will affect your mental health, I've decided that during the mission, the both of you will be interchanging when it comes to sleeping with me. By sleeping I just mean that, sleeping. No sexual acts. At least not during the mission. Though there was a slight falter in their smile when I mentioned no sex, the duo smiled at the details given regardless. Now, who sleeps with me first is up to you two. I don't mind or care which. As long as none of you tries any tricks while I'm asleep, everything is fine. I noted. Well, as I acted the best, I deserve the warmth of Citronitas while Shalltear sleeps in the spare bed. Esteth exclaimed. Please, you're nothing but an icicle that will make Citronitas freeze. Shalltear argued back at her declaration. This is so vexing. I'll let them solve their issues. I'll only pray that they don't violate me in my sleep. Chapter 15, Signing Up with the Guild. A/N, chapter released earlier than expected? I guess that's a reward for not posting in a while. As I've been busy with school and life, I've barely had time to focus on chapters. So, sorry if this one isn't on par with previous chapters. Discord, https://discord.gg/ck4xcbc6jt. Time skip, 1 day. Narrator's POV. It was a beautiful day outside. The birds were singing, flowers were blooming. On days like this one, people like Citronitas should get out of bed. The plague doctor's eyes struggled to open, refusing to function and wanting that extra minute of sleep we all crave for. Ugh, I'm so fucking tired. Citronitas thought to himself, trying to find the will to get out of bed. For a being like Citronitas, sleeping isn't a necessity compared to regular humans. This is because Citronitas is a homunculus, an artificial human. However, that doesn't mean that he is unable to sleep such as a certain skeleton. It's an optional choice. One thing to note is that while homunculi don't require sleep to properly function, they do have a rather large appetite. For example, the homunculus maids are dependent on additional nutrition due to a racial debuff. However, unlike those maids, Citronitas does negate having to consume a banquet's worth of food by being level 100 and using the Ring of Sustenance. Sleeping is cool, but waking up in the morning just sucks. My body is abnormally sore. Oh well, I should be getting up now. Need to sign up with the guild and shit. Citronitas was going to get up, but he found himself immobile. It was as if a hefty weight was placed on the lower part of his body. Confused, Citronitas pulled his upper body forward only to find a certain vampire gripping his legs like a child would grip a teddy bear. No wonder I felt like my body was being constricted by some snake. I was being hugged by a vampire with 90 physical attack. Concluded the alchemist, pulling the blanket covering him and Shalltear off the bed frame. Though it wasn't a surprise, Citronitas was slightly taken aback by Shalltear's positioning. The petite vampire was drooling over a certain area on Citronitas's body, to say the least. Well, at least my clothes aren't ripped off. Still, drooling over my genitalia is quite extreme, is it not? Not wanting saliva over his private parts, Citronitas lightly tapped the head of the vampire, trying to wake her from her sleep. Shalltear, please wake up. We have a mission to complete. The vampire only responded with a light groan. Cit, Rhinitas, harder. If you don't wake up, that's fine by me. However, I'll remind you that if you don't, Esteth will be spending the morning with me, alone. Comically, Shalltear sprang up from her daze with eyes wide open. Clean. Citronitas made sure to clean up the vampire's slobber that was on his pants. Well, at least you're awake, he said, finally being able to move his legs and get out of bed. Mau, don't scare me like that. I was having an amazing dream about how you pounded M-. Please, spare me from the details. Citronitas said with slight annoyance, making Shalltear slightly bite the side of her lip. On an unrelated note, where the hell is Esteth? The ice demoness was nowhere in sight. The bed she slept in was empty. The blankets and bedsheets were perfectly made as if nobody slept on the bed at all. Did Esteth leave? Was Citronitas's first thought. Most likely. The question is, where? She better not be making trouble. Where's Esteth? Shalltear asked, before turning to the empty bed next to her. The vampire grew a sly smirk before turning to Citronitas. I guess she couldn't handle us being together. How we Shalltear's talking was interrupted by the door of Citronitas's in-room opening. And from the door frame came Esteth, fully geared in her adventurer outfit. Her snow-white hair complemented her gorgeous face and crystal-like eyes. Citronitas, Esteth called out in a sweet and loving tone. However, Citronitas interrupted her before she got the chance to continue. Esteth, where were you? If Citronitas had the ability to stop time just like Ins, those words would have done so perfectly. The previous sweet look Esteth had frozen in place as Shalltear grew a maniacal grin of satisfaction. Ha 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 ha. Esteth is in so much trouble. Just going off on her own without informing my beloved. What was she thinking? Ha 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 ha. I'm sure that Citronitas will punish her by not having her sleep with him. That means I can have Citronitas all by myself. The vampire thought, trying her best not to laugh out loud. Well. Contradictory to her previous confidence, Esteth found it quite hard to formulate proper words in her mouth, stuttering and saying filler words in their place. It took her a moment to calm down before she was able to properly say anything. As you were sleeping, I took the liberty of surveying the surrounding area and gathered information from locals of Cleus. Oh, That's actually pretty helpful. I thought she'd be crying or something as she didn't sleep with me. I didn't even ask her to do that. I guess I was wrong about her, thought Citronides, taken back by the usefulness of Esteth. Oh my, I appreciate your practicality, Esteth. You've saved me quite a bit of time that can be used for other minor activities. Well done. If there was a button that helped a person switch emotions, Esteth, with no hesitation, slammed that button to pieces. Yes, 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 yes. Citronides is impressed. Take that, Shalltear. Esteth screamed internally whilst doing her best to keep composed. Fuck. No words could express Shalltear's despair after realizing Esteth one-upped her. Damn it, the icy bitch got me. I'll find one way or another to impress my darling. While I was out for a short amount of time, I was able to grab a map of the surrounding area from a wandering merchant. It's nothing much as it only maps the current and former areas of the Dragon Kingdom. Nonetheless, it is useful to have. Esteth explained, elaborating on her mini-outing. I can agree to that. It would be beneficial to us and for Nazarick to have a map of the surrounding area this far east. Make sure to send a copy off to Demiurge as the Archdevil hasn't set up an information network in the Dragon Kingdom as of yet. You can show me the map once we go to the Adventurers Guild. Citronides summed up for the duo. There was a momentary silence within the room before Esteth broke it. Does this mean I can fuck you? The Plague Doctor didn't even get to formulate any words as he was cut off by an enraged Shalltear. What? No? Citronides is mine. Citronides was thankful for the powerful spells which he cast the moment he arrived in the inn's room. If not for the magic, Shalltear's voice would have surely been heard throughout Cleus. Though, that may have been a slight exaggeration. Within an instant, the relatively calm room was filled with two powerful auras that could suffocate any regular human alone. Holy I was Citronides' first thought. I should do something before these two rip each other's faces off. Please, ladies, calm yourselves, Citronides said with his usual professionalism and well-mannered tone. Despite that, Esteth and Shalltear didn't react to his warning. In fact, they moved closer to each other, ready to kill the other in the most painful way possible. This is getting out of hand. Enough. The duo froze in place from Citronides' outburst as their clashing and suffocating auras ceased. The last thing I want to wake up to is petty arguing. Both of you know that you'll be sharing me at different and fair intervals. Any more pettiness like this and I'll reconsider everything. Yes, Citronides. Please forgive us for our measly missteps. It won't happen again, my love. Esteth and Shalltear spoke in unison, their tone filled with the utmost sincerity a being could physically have. Citronides slightly huffed before using magic to instantly get his amazing adventurer armor equipped. Good, if I catch any misbehavior during our time building a reputation here, there will be severe consequences. Am I clear? The duo gulped before quickly nodding. It's annoying that I have to act like some parental figure for these women. Oh well, I should be heading out to the Adventurers Guild. Citronides concluded. I'll be heading to this inn's reception now. I expect the both of you to be ready and meet me there within 5 minutes. Shouldn't be too hard, right? There's no need to wait. Shalltear quickly shouted as she snapped her fingers and equipped her adventure gear. Esteth followed suit. Shalltear is right. We've wasted your time that could have been spent elsewhere. Let's go now, the icy Yellowness said with politeness. Citronides almost doubted her and the vampire's words. They better not be trying to butter me up. Though, considering it is Esteth and Shalltear, that's probably what they're trying to do. Meh, at least they're ready. The Plague Doctor only replied with a good before teleporting to the reception. The duo of troubling women followed in pursuit with their own teleportation magic before arriving in the inn's lobby. Sophie, who was fidgeting with her pen with a bored expression, jolted with surprise at the sudden appearance of the trio. The receptionist cleared her throat. Orden, it is good to see you this morning. Sophie quickly collected herself, changing that previous boredom to cheer instantly. Good morning, Sophie. Sorry for catching you off guard. But, due to circumstances, we were late when preparing to head out today. Citronides spoke apologetically to the slightly less startled receptionist. However, that didn't last long as Sophie began to blush an impossible red. Oh, for fuck's sake. Sophie probably thought circumstances meant morning sex with Esteth and Shalltear. Is this just going to be a common gag between us now? Oh well, it's harmless. At least I think it is. Oh well, Sophie was speechless, to say the least. Due to sheer embarrassment, words couldn't formulate for the life of her. Welp, we'll be heading to the Adventurers Guild now. See you later, Sophie. Quite simply and comically, Citronides, Esteth and Shalltear just walked out of the establishment, leaving Sophie to her own, embarrassed, devices. The Adventurers Guild wasn't too far away from where the inn was located. This was because the inn was constructed with adventurers in mind. If the inn was further away, it would earn less as tired adventurers wouldn't want to walk so far to get into bed. Soon, Citronides, Esteth and Shalltear arrived at the front of the Adventurers Guild. Just like the inn they stayed at, the guild's architecture was different from the surrounding buildings. But, unlike the inn which had a few unique details, the Adventurers Guild was full of oddities. So much that it stuck out like a sore thumb because of how different it was. Intricate etchings of lines were carved into the walls themselves as they flowed wherever they wanted. Grand pillars of dark wood that were everywhere held the massive two-floor building firmly. Simple, yet expensive windows were mounted, giving an inside view of the guild. In other words, the Adventurers Guild was your typical guild seen in fantasy anime or manga. This building looks really expensive and well built. Surely this was made before the Beastmen nation started to mess with the Dragon Kingdom. The Dragon Kingdom wouldn't waste such expensive resources on one Adventurers Guild, Citronides noted to himself, before entering the guild. With a swing of the door, the small interactions between adventurers already in the guild temporarily ceased as they focused on the trio entering the place. "Bro, who the hell are those guys?" said a random adventurer to one of his pals. "Beats me. I've never seen these folks in Cleus before." "Sheesh, the one with white hair is to die for," said another adventurer in a loud whisper. "Heh, like you'll attract any bitches, ha ha ha," laughed another, jabbing his friend in the gut jokingly. Esteth, overhearing the conversation, did her best not to stab the adventurer in the heart with an icicle. "Calm yourself, Esteth. Don't mess this for darling," she said to herself. One adventurer who was leaning on the side of a wall took a careful and long glance at the trio before finally realizing who they were. "Holy shit," the adventurer muttered under her breath. "What is it, Abby?" questioned an adventurer close by, sipping a beer. "You know about those villagers that came in here yesterday? The ones which were attacked by beastmen?" "Yeah, wait, don't tell me." The female adventurer named Abby slightly huffed. "Yep, those are the guys that dealt with that mess." Citronides looked around the guild as he walked to the reception, eyeing the adventurers gossiping about his group with slight interest. "All seems normal so far, which is good. I must commend that Esteth and Shalltear are handling themselves well in this public space. I can only hope this lasts." The trio quickly arrived at the guild's reception, which was opposite and to the right of the building, making it hidden from a typical glance. However, what surprised Citronides, along with Esteth and Shalltear for that matter, was the receptionist herself. To keep things short, the receptionist was Sophie, the same one that manages the inn Citronides currently resides in. That can't be Sophie, can it? Does she have an identical twin? This one here looks like a carbon copy of the one in the inn. Citronides thought to himself curiously. New blood, the Sophie copy said without a plight in the world. "Welcome to the Guild of Cleus or whatever. How may I help you?" If Sophie from the inn was bright, energetic, and easily embarrassed, this one was the opposite. This Sophie was full of sloth and unenthusiastic. Her voice was akin to someone needing to wake up for work at 5 a.m. "Sophie, is that you? Do you perhaps have an identical twin?" Citronides questioned the girl whose head was on the reception counter. Sophie is my twin. However, my name is Sophia. Parents are so original with names, am I right?" Sophia sarcastically asked, now giving a more meticulous examination of the people in front of her. "Wait a fucking moment." Sophia rubbed her eyes slightly. "Are you the people who saved those villagers from a beastman attack?" Though her tone did seem to change, it was so slight barely anyone would have noticed. Sophia is the polar opposite of Sophie. Swearing and all. I kinda like it. "Indeed we are. My name is Orden Carries. The lady in white is Elsa while the blonde goth is Valkyrie. A pleasure to meet you, Sophia." Citronides offered his hand toward the girl out of politeness. Though he didn't expect a handshake from the girl, he got one nonetheless. "The guildmaster told me about you late last night. Truth be told, I forgot much of what he said. All that I know is that y'all culled some beastmen and we're going to sign up here the next day," Sophia said in a monotone voice before slouching back on the reception counter. "I know how the guild works. Register, pay a fee and start from the bottom. However, considering my team's significant accomplishments and power, that isn't the case. Am I right, Sophia?" The emo-like receptionist nodded once. "Yeah, the guildmaster will deal with that stuff. Normally I do the registering, but this is the exception. I don't mind it cause I do less work. Anyways, the boss said he wanted to meet you or whatever. Just go up the staff staircase behind me. The old man's office is marked with his name on one of the doors. You won't miss it. If you do, then you're just stupid as fuck." Very well, Sophia. I greatly appreciate you helping me and my companions," Citronides replied as the duo of women behind him only gave a low grumble. "How dare this bitch act so improper when conversing with my darling?" they both thought, suppressing the urge to rip Sophia to shreds. Sophia has some spunk to her. If I wasn't here, Esteth and Shalltear would devour that innocent human to pieces. I should get going," Citronides concluded as he pushed a mini-gate open that separated the reception desk from the rest of the guild hall and walked up the staff staircase. Esteth and Shalltear quickly followed in pursuit, not before giving Sophia snarls which the receptionist didn't react to. It didn't even take 10 seconds before Citronides arrived at the door which led to the guildmaster's office. Citronides knocked on the door lightly before a man from the other side yelled "Enter." Turning the door handle, Citronides was greeted by the guildmaster, who was sitting on his chair opposite to the door and waiting patiently. The guildmaster was a man around his 50s with well-defined features. Things such as grey hair, sharp jawline, and toned muscles. Is the guildmaster a retired adventurer? Most likely. The aura surrounding him suggests experience on the field. Interesting. Pleasure to finally meet you, Orden Carries. Elsa and Valkyrie, a pleasure to meet you too. Please, take a seat. The guildmaster gestured to some chairs that were positioned opposite to him. Citronides, being polite, took his offer. A pleasure to meet you too. Now, let's skip formalities, shall we? We all know why we're here. The simple sentence seemed to catch the guildmaster off guard. Oh, of course. As you all know, the captain of the Cleus guards informed me about the situation that happened yesterday. I must firstly thank you for saving those villagers. If it wasn't for you, my daughter would have probably been used as breeding stock before being devoured, the guildmaster said, gulping some saliva. Anyways, beastmen have always been stronger than humans. It's why they've been able to capture so many of our cities and people. Only trained individuals with experience and power can hope to put the beastmen at bay. That's why the Queen hires adventurer teams like Shalltear or worker teams such as Blazing Crimson to slow their advances. But, the guildmaster took a slight pause before speaking. Even then, things don't usually work out. The best they can do is just make the beastmen raid parties temporarily retreat. However, your team completely decimated those beastmen? Orden, you used 5th tier magic, did you not? The guildmaster asked, with clear hope in his eyes. Yes I did. Citrinides simply answered the question as the guildmaster's eyes grew admiration. Such power, it is no wonder how those beastmen died. The guildmaster muttered, before clearing his throat. In that case, it is a no-brainer that your team is worthy of adamantite rank, he said, taking some adamantite rank chains from a drawer and handing them to Citrinides. Huh? I thought we were going to get mithril rank at least. But adamantite? While unexpected, it is certainly welcomed. Though this shouldn't affect Momon's great achievements. Well, it might. Scratch that, this totally will. But, we're too far away to actually steal any of his thunder. While he deals with the demonic incursion, I'll deal with the beastmen here. Humanity will have 2 great heroes they can rely on before Ins comes in and makes them submit. I'm just setting this persona up to make Nazarick's future conquest smoother. That and researching this area more. I greatly appreciate the comment. This definitely saves us time climbing up the ranks normally and completing mundane tasks. Citrinides remarked, taking the chain and putting it over his neck. Esteth and Shalltear did the same thing. The guildmaster only nodded. Don't worry about registering and all that. I'll personally do that for you. All I need is your team name. The fee is on me, he said with a slight smirk. Just call us Hope. Hope? That's a pretty good team name. Once you become famous, you'll definitely become the hope of the Dragon Kingdom. Ha ha ha. The guildmaster laughed before writing some stuff down. Great, you're pretty much done. I'll relay this information to some higher UPS. This is pretty significant, after all. You shouldn't worry about jealous adventurers wanting to test their strength on you. Pretty much everyone in the city knows what happened at Karka, the guildmaster noted. Thank you, guildmaster. I appreciate your kindness. If that's all, my team and I will be heading out to complete some missions, Citrinides said, getting off from his seat. No, that's all. I look forward to your accomplishments, Orden, and companions. Time skip, 1 day. Scene change. I appreciate your help, Cerebrit. It means the world to me, said a little girl in a cute, high-pitched voice. This was none other than Queen Draudelian Oraculus of the Dragon Kingdom. With her childlike body, she sat on her throne wearing revealing clothes for Cerebrit to admire. Yes, your majesty? Leave it to me, the man swiftly replied. With short, silver hair, Cerebrit wore a magnificent armor comprised of blue, white and gold. One could perceive this man to be handsome if it wasn't for the fact he was a pedophile and pervert. Cerebrit gave a deep bow to the queen before leaving her in the throne room by herself. Draudelian gave a deep sigh of relief once those doors closed shut. Are all humans Lilicons? She muttered. It wasn't as if she liked doing what she did. Cerebrit is the only man capable of driving back beastmen attacks who just so happens has a knack for little girls. How long must I keep this up? How long until Cerebrit demands more from me? As the queen was deep in thought, there was a knock at the door. That isn't Cerebrit. That asshole doesn't knock on doors for the life of him, the queen thought. Enter. From her command, a simple messenger boy entered the throne room. Your Majesty, he greeted politely. Bob, what brings you here? I wasn't informed about receiving a message. Draudelian questioned. Sorry about that, Your Majesty. However, this message is of absolute importance. The messenger Bob exclaimed. Karka village was attacked by beastmen. Another beastman attack. The queen exclaimed as shock filled her face. Was Cleus lost to the raid party? The thought of another city being lost put her on edge. No. In fact, though Karka was attacked, reports say that a trio killed all the beastmen. Huh? Is that true? Killed. The words Bob said were almost comical. Yes, Your Majesty. Due to the act, the guildmaster of Cleus made them adamantite adventurers. Killed? If that's the case, they must be more powerful than Cerebrit. Maybe these people can help me with all these issues. Chapter 16, A Furious King. Time skip, 1 day. Narrator's POV. Atop his glorious golden throne sat a mighty demi-human. No, mighty wouldn't have done the scene, let alone the figure, enough justice. The beastman in question was none other than the king of the beastman nation, Clafuth. Even when comparing the king with fellow members of the same race, Clafuth made even the strongest of beastmen seem pitiful. In simple terms, Clafuth was a panda demi-human. However, he wasn't the typical panda that eats bamboo and sleeps 24/7. He also wasn't chubby like a certain kung fu panda. Clafuth was an absolute tank. He wore nothing but a ragged cloth that covered his armored pants. Clafuth also had armor along his forearms and a necklace made of human skulls. The beastman's entire body was bolstered with muscles harder than metal. From head to toe, there wasn't an ounce of body fat. Clawfoot's eyes, though small, glowed a startling white, which stood out from the black fur around his eye sockets. Together with his massive claws that were as sharp as his teeth, it is no wonder how Clawfoot became the king of a warmongering nation. The Beastman King surveyed his throne room before spotting a beastman pass by from a distant hallway. "Hey, you!" Clawfoot shouted, pointing to the beastman with a singular claw. His voice was girthy and menacing, causing the beastman he called out to slightly jolting from shock and fear. Why yes, your excellency, what is it you desire?" The servant beastman hastily replied with the utmost respect to Clawfoot's sudden call out. "Fetch me a human. Preferably a female one. Then, tell Auroch to update me on our most recent raid party so we can continue with our conquest. At once." The humble servant furiously nodded to the king's demand. "Your request shall be met with haste and care, your excellency." Clawfoot huffed with annoyance. "Haste? If that's the case, why aren't you already doing what I asked?" The panda slammed his mighty arm against the armrest of his throne, creating a loud boom that could be heard throughout the palace. Scared shitless, and justifiably so, the servant only bowed. "I'm sorry, your excellency. It won't happen again." "Humph," the king slightly calmed his easily agitated temper. "You don't want to end up like Nazarick, do you?" The servant gave a simple reply. "No." "Good, then do what you're told." The humble servant nodded before quickly scurrying to complete the tasks assigned to him. Clawfoot didn't have to wait long for a female human to arrive at his doorstep. This time, 2 different beastmen appeared. One was in guard attire while the other one was more properly dressed. "Your excellency, as requested by you, I've brought this human girl to satisfy any of your needs," the guard said, tugging on the metal chain tied around the female's neck, signaling her to start moving. The female was nothing special. In fact, due to the living conditions human captives live in within the Beastman nation, she could be described as ugly. The grime and wounds covering the female's body only cemented this idea in place. The girl didn't say anything. She was too malnourished to formulate proper sentences. She simply obeyed as she quietly walked and stood next to the menacing Beastman King. Clawfoot gave a quick glance at the female before gently placing his massive hand on her head. "Thank you, guard. You're permitted to leave now." The guard respectfully bowed before leaving the other beastmen with the king. "Now tell me, Auroch, what is the report for our most recent excursion?" Auroch nodded once as he pulled out a piece of paper from a cloth pouch by his waist. He quickly scanned the information on the page before his face turned sour. "Well, ahem," Auroch cleared his throat before speaking. "The raid party at Karka village, which would be used as a base to capture Cleus, failed." The king was quick to respond. "Failed? Was it the parasite Cerebrit that drove off the raid party?" "Humph, it is not a matter. We can launch another attack with the same men," Clawfoot said quite passively and without care. Auroch bit the side of his lip, cautious with the words he was about to say. "Your excellency, Cerebrit didn't drive off the raid party. It was a new group. And unfortunately, this new group killed off the entire squad." The silence was never louder than now. "Go on." The furs on Auroch immediately stood up with fear from the calm words uttered by Clawfoot. It was as if the king was so angry, no words could express his true emotions. Listening to the king's order, he continued with the report, not before gulping the collecting saliva in his mouth. "The new group consists of 3 humans. Their leader, Orden carries along with 2 females going by Elsa and Valkyrie. Together, they form Hope. Apparently, this new adventurer team completely wiped the floor with the raid party. Reports say they have access to 5th-tier magic." The king didn't say anything. That is all the information we have. There were attempts to gather information with elite espionage units. However, they too were killed. Though the one-sided conversation happened within a few seconds, it felt like an eternity. Without warning, the hand that was on the human female's head clamped into a tight fist. Blood and brain matter flew in all directions as the female's body fell limp on the floor, collecting blood beneath her. Auroch slightly flinched from the display of anger. He had expected the king to scream profanities. After all, it was typical for him to do so as he had a wild temper. But he didn't. Not this time. Clawfoot kept silent, which only frightened Auroch more. "You're permitted to leave now." Doing what he was told, Auroch left the throne room at a seemingly impossible speed. His heart throbbed so much that it felt like it was going to explode due to uncontrollable fear. It wasn't until the guard left the room that Clawfoot did anything. "Fuck." Clawfoot's white eyes lit up with a fiery passion as he ripped and threw the throne he sat on from its hinges, splintering the magnificent chair into nothing but atoms. "Fuck, fuck, fuck. How dare mere humans mess with my plans? My people." His deep voice was filled with so much anger that the palace shook with every scream. "It's impossible? How can this happen? Humans are nothing but weaklings? Pathetic sacks of flesh and bone? 5th-tier magic? Lies? All lies." The floor beneath Clawfoot started to break and crumble with every stomp he made. It wasn't until the throne room was filled with dust and completely decimated that Clawfoot's anger toned down ever so slightly. "Not another thorn by my side," Clawfoot said to himself. "That parasite from Shalltear is annoying, but all he does is drive my forces back. This new group, Hope, to kill my raid party, with powerful magic no less. How dare they? Unless I deal with that group early, I'll never be able to conquer the Dragon Kingdom for my kin. And eventually, that pesky Dragon Queen will use them to retake Cleus, Voigt, and Ripolis. From an outside perspective, Cleus may seem like a musclehead, all brawn and no brains. But, hidden under all that muscle is a practical mind. I'll have to change my plans for the Dragon Kingdom. The original objective was to slowly drown and dwindle the resources of the Dragon Kingdom. Even if the Dragon Queen deployed Shalltear, all they could do was kill only a few beastmen. Cleus was perfectly fine with playing for the long term. Besides, it was more enjoyable to see the despair litter human faces. But now, a new, unknown group has entered the fray, messing up everything. If I let this group call my men and recapture those cities, those assholes from the great Minotaur nation and that mysterious sea city will make their move. Cleus took a deep breath in before slowly exhaling. The thought of the great Minotaur nation and the elusive sea city only gave Cleus a headache. Grrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrr bulls for what they did to my father. And that fucking dolphin with that vexing machine gun. I can still hear that annoying cackle of his. Gar. Clawfoot was going to sit back down on his throne, before realizing he obliterated the thing into nothing. I should control my anger better. Father always said it was my weakness. I'll note that when dealing with this new adventurer group. From the corner of his eyes, Clawfoot saw a small group of curious yet fearful beastmen peer into the throne room from the unhinged door. The king only snarled, startling the small audience of beastmen. You all, step forward. The small audience of beastmen stood out from hiding. I expect my throne room clean and spotless by the end of the day. Eyes. That. Clear. Yes, Your Excellency. The beastman shouted with respect. Good. I have some plans to make. Time skip, 1 day. Scene change. The queen is interested in me. Citronides asked Sophia with skepticism in his voice. I mean, I was planning on meeting her sometime in the future to study wild magic. But so soon as my Orden carries persona? Well, I did become an adamantite adventurer. The alchemist thought. And when am I scheduled to meet with Her Majesty? Do I have to go to the capital immediately? Citronides pressed on for more answers. I don't fucking know. I'm not the queen, am I? Heh, I'm glad I sent Shalltear and his death to complete some random tasks to boost reputation. If they heard that, Sophia wouldn't live to see another day. Ha ha ha. All I know is that the meeting isn't required. Though, unless you want to damage your reputation by ignoring her, I suggest meeting with Her Majesty or whatever. One more thing, you have until the end of the week to meet the queen in the capital. Just sayin', Sophia said with her typical spunk. End of the week, huh? Reminds me that the lizard stuff starts happening in 7 days' time. Time flies by fast. Citronides quickly reminisced about his time spent in the Overlord universe. Looking back on things now, the alchemist could have definitely done plenty of things better. Such as not being a coward even though he served in the military in his past life. Well, things are heading on the right track. I should visit the queen so that I gain some knowledge of what wild magic is. Possibly even what martial arts are along with talents. Too bad I haven't seen anyone with a supposed talent and my group has gone solo, so we haven't seen anyone use martial arts. I greatly appreciate your input on the matter, Sophia, Citronides said with his typical politeness. Yeah, whatever. The guild receptionist dismissed his remarks like usual. Oh, one more thing. The guild master wanted me to tell you this. Sophia made a last-second remark to Citronides before he left. There have been reports of beastmen sightings near Gale, the next city over. Usually, a quest like this would be platinum or mithril ranked. However, as we believe that the beastman nation is being more forceful due to the failed raid on Cleus, the difficulty has been increased to adamantite rank. This is just a safety precaution. Alas, I don't give a fuck whether you die or not. Gale, huh? That isn't too far from Cleus. At least on the map. I should be able to arrive there, complete the mission, and arrive back at Cleus within 2 days. Besides, it should be a good idea to do more traveling and explore the country more. Sophia sighed. I don't really care what you do. Would Esteth and Shalltear be okay without me? They should be fine. They need to learn some self-control while I need a break from babysitting. Splitting up would also boost my team's reputation more. Yeah, the plan seems fine. Citronides concluded. Very well then, Sophia. Tell the guildmaster that I accept the quest and will be heading over to Egale effective immediately. Also, tell my companions that I'll be away for a small fraction of the time. They'll understand why I left. The alchemist said with confidence. You sure they won't overreact like a girl fan club? They act like needy children and are very clingy. Sophia boldly retorted. Citronides gave a small chuckle. Don't worry, I'm sure they'll be fine. Scene change. Old Tsar? How are you doing, friend? Asked a woman loudly, catching the attention of the sleeping dragon in front of her. The woman had the physique of a grandma. Gray hair tied into a ponytail along with wearing a black robe, held in place with a red jewel. Tsar, being none other than the Platinum Dragon Lord, was adorned with gorgeous white scales that shimmered like stars in the night sky. Regret? What are you doing here? Tsar asked the woman, now identified as Regret with curiosity. What? The reply almost sounded sarcastic and obvious. Is it wrong to check up on a friend once in a while? The world is changing while you sleep, you know. Tsar made a clicking sound with his tongue, matching the sarcasm of Regret. I'll have you know that I am very aware of the political and economic state of the world right now. Tsar rebuked. Is that why gilded ordnance is scratched up like that? I haven't seen that armor so worn out since 200 years ago. Haha. Regret teased, chuckling at the end of her sentence. Indeed, Tsar started to get up from his sleeping position. I fought a very powerful vampire, to say the least. Regret temporarily ceased her scheming and teasing mannerisms when she heard the emphasis on very. It was a rare occurrence for the Dragon Lord to act like that. Very, you say? Was this vampire possibly Honyopen Ioko, the one which was slain by Momon? Tsar thought for a brief moment before answering. Yes it was. And the mention of Momon is what troubles me. If Tsar had Regret's curiosity, he now had her full attention. Troubles you? How so? Regret questioned. That vampire, it was strong. Really strong. To be completely honest, I don't think I would have been able to win. That's why I disengaged before things got troubling. Tsar said. Yes, this Momon figure comes out of nowhere and supposedly kills the vampire. The Platinum Dragon gave a low growl. The advent of players. His voice was low and menacing, which caused Regret to slightly gulp from fear. Well, now that I think about it, it has been 200 years since the last advent, right? The old lady questioned. Indeed, it has. I fear that the looming threat of players will rise again. The dragon trailed off with his sentence, thinking about the bleak past. Just curious, what makes you think Momon and that vampire are players? Momon, along with his partner, refused to disclose their country of origin. It only makes me suspicious that they're players from Yggdrasil. Not only that, but the aftermath of the battle, it was akin to the evil spirits of old, remember? Regret smiled. I know. How could I forget what's now known as the Wastelands, Tsar? She teased. Though the damage wasn't as severe compared to what happened in the Wastelands, it was still pretty significant. The dragon noted. Even with all that, Momon isn't a bad person by any means. Advents can be both good and bad. There is some truth to that. Aspect and Akira were players. Too bad they both unexpectedly died in the middle of our journey. I regret not pressing on for more answers. Aspect was always cryptic with his responses. Tsar sighed and huffed with frustration. That said, advents are more likely to lead to curses rather than any blessings. I'd beg to disagree. Regret firmly replied. There are some interesting things happening in the Dragon Kingdom. That seemed to catch the attention of the Dragon Lord. Oh, really? Tsar asked. You know, for someone who claims to watch over the world, you sure are clueless. Shows how much you know about the political and economic state of the world right now, huh? The Dragon Lord only growled with a playful annoyance. Anyways, I'll let you know on what I know so far. Hope consists of 3 powerful humans that can apparently use 5th-tier magic. They appeared out of nowhere, claiming to come from the Far East before slaughtering a raid party sent by the Beastmen nation. Regret finished her summary, leaving Tsar to absorb all the information. Interesting, very interesting. If Tsar had a human hand, it would have been stroking his chin. Now, you think that Hope is a mini-group of players? Regret asked with curiosity. If I was suspicious of Momon being a player, then this trio making up Hope are definitely players. TCH, from the Far East. There are no human nations that Far East. All fabrications to cover up that they're from Yggdrasil, I say. Well, things don't seem too bad for now. Hope is going about and completing dangerous tasks in the Dragon Kingdom, instead of taking over the world. The same goes for Darkness, the old lady said. Still, Tsar took a slight pause. It doesn't hurt being cautious. Who knows what evils from Yggdrasil will come next? We've been blessed with those 2, but who knows what other powerful beings might come next? Well, shouldn't we prepare before that time comes? Recruit some potential allies to defend against the next advent that threatens the world? I say we reach out to your fellow Dragon Lord brethren. Didn't you form an alliance 200 years ago? Tsar only scoffed. Please, they aren't the type to lend aid. Deep Darkness is sleeping in that subterranean cave of his. Brightness is probably busy fucking someone only God knows where. Heavenly just flies around all day. Elder Coffin, he might join. Though he's busy building some undead army in the quarantine zone at the center of the supercontinent. Tsar went on extensively as to why his fellow Dragon Lord friends wouldn't come to aid when the time comes. I have a much greater chance at awakening her in the Sea City than finding help with my other Dragon Lord acquaintances. Though, that stupid dolphin and his silly minigun of his is annoying to deal with. He's the equivalent of that annoying cousin you want to hit, but can't. Regret laughed. This would have been an easier task if Aspect didn't just die on us. Tsar was quick to rebuke. His death was unavoidable after he killed Akira. He refused resurrection and chose death. Regardless of the past, I request your help in finding possible candidates for the guild weapon or any other Yggdrasil item. Regret gave a warm smile. That shouldn't be an issue for me, old friend. Chapter 17, Beastmen at a Gale Timeskip, one day. Narrator's POV. Hey, buddy. An adventurer, who was minding his business, lightly jabbed at his colleague's stomach. What is it this time, dumbass? Replied the second adventurer. Is it just me, or is that Cerebrit? Questioned the first man with odd confusion, pointing at a white-haired man as he walked towards the adventurer guild. A/N, this is Cerebrit, if anyone needed a refresher. Huh. The second adventurer seemed stunned at Cerebrit's sudden and odd appearance. I think that is Cerebrit. What's that guy doing here at a gale? Never mind that, where is the rest of Shalltear? He asked his friend, hoping for an answer before taking a bite out of a sandwich in his hand. Another adventurer placed himself in the conversation. I think I know the reason. He boldly exclaimed, pointing a finger into the air. Take this with a grain of salt as I haven't checked the guild bulletin yet. However, I do believe that there have been sightings of beastmen near here. Beastmen? Here? Asked the first adventurer with clear skepticism in his voice. The third man only shrugged his shoulders. It must be the situation that happened in Cleus. I guess beastmen have set their sights here. The first adventurer concluded with confidence. Yeah, I think you're right for once, dumb idiot. Haha. The second adventurer giggled as the first only clicked his tongue. Anyways, that doesn't explain why Cerebrit came to a gale without the rest of his team. The second man said, wanting his previous questions answered. You know how that bastard is. The third guy muttered with clear disdain in his voice. Probably acting like a mutt for the queen. As long as she makes a request, he'll comply like a dog licking his master's boots. While it is fine to be patriotic, it's the fact that the queen looks like a child. Plain old disgusting. The other two men could only agree. It was a known fact that Cerebrit wasn't the best of human beings. He was, in fact, a pedophile and pervert. Damn, mood's gone sour. If it makes y'all feel better, there is another adamantite team, Hope. We know, dumbass. The information has probably reached the Argland Council state by now. The first adventurer finished the sentence that came out of his stupid friend's mouth. The story had been told so much at this point. Everyone knows what happened at Cleus. I don't know much about Hope. However, I can tell they're already better than Shalltear. Every mission Hope has completed, they've refused gold as compensation, often giving it to the unfortunate or surviving villagers of Karka. The second man summarized. How nice of the team. I wonder if they'll come here to a gale and stop the beastmen. After all, unlike Shalltear, Hope killed each beastman with ease. That's something I want to be able to do within my lifetime. Scene change. The Adventurers Guild was quite active even though it was fairly early in the morning. Adventurer teams were going about their typical and daily business. Some looked at the bulletin, some grabbed a bite with the built-in tavern, and some tried to flirt with the guild receptionist and miserably failed. All in all, everything was normal. Alas, it wasn't going to be normal for too long with the sudden appearance of a white-haired male. Adorned in rich fabrics and armor of white, gold, blue, and black, Cerebrit created an aura of arrogance and nobility around him. Though saying that the guild hall temporarily halted at the sight of Cerebrit would have sounded like an exaggeration, it was far from it. However, the reason for said silence wasn't any of shocked awe or admiration. Quite the opposite. It was safe to say that everyone hated Cerebrit to some degree. What in the four great gods is that asshole doing here? One adventurer whispered with disdain in his voice. Most likely that adamantite ranked quest that was posted the other day. Most have been completed by that new team. At least that's what I've heard. They're quite efficient. No. Yo, David, you know about that rumor from Tydo revolving around Cerebrit. A random adventurer calmly, yet quietly said to a colleague sitting opposite him. What about it? I'm a clueless dork as you know, haha. The colleague gave a light chuckle at his self-roast. Rumor has it he was molesting a minor. The colleague exhaled as if a weight had been lifted from his body. If that rumor is true, that isn't very adventure-like. No. Great, the bootlicker is here. Muttered an adventurer to himself, who was leaning against the side of a wall. I hate people like that. Too bad he's a necessity. The Dragon Kingdom needs him to thwart beastmen raid parties every now and then. General reactions ranged from simply uncaring to absolutely deploring Cerebrit. Despite this, everyone kept to themselves and didn't vocalize any disdain towards the white-haired adventurer. After all, he is an adamantite-ranked adventurer for a reason. Cerebrit, unfazed by the sudden shift in the atmosphere, walked directly toward the guild receptionist. Not before taking a glance at the bulletin. Hello, guild receptionist, Cerebrit greeted the slightly cautious and afraid receptionist girl. I'm sure you know why I'm here. The beautiful and cute queen herself sent me on a quest to protect the country. Some nearby adventurers clicked their tongues with annoyance. However, they went unheard to Cerebrit. Why yes. The receptionist meekly replied. I was told by my superior that why you'd be coming to a gale. The pedophile only smirked from the girl's response. My, the way to talk is so cute. Cerebrit raised his hand to touch the cheek of the frozen receptionist. As much as the adventurers in the guild hated his guts, nobody stopped him from continuing to touch the innocent receptionist. Maybe it was the fact that every adventurer had their attention focused on Cerebrit that the appearance of another adventurer went unnoticed. You must be Cerebrit, right? I do believe that inappropriately touching a lady that doesn't look to be 17 yet is acceptable behavior. No. The sudden voice made Cerebrit turn quickly with anger. The pervert had expected some random adventurer to stand up to him. However, who he saw made him rethink his actions. The man who stood opposite him was covered in a gorgeous white plating of mystical metal from head to toe. Furthermore, teal trimmings complemented the white armor, completing the whole look. No words came out of Cerebrit's mouth at the sight of such heavenly armor. It was as if the pervert was looking at the armor of a rich noble or a king. I swear to everything that's good in this world, if this picture doesn't get 100 likes, I won't work on the next chapter. My fashion sense is amazing? Y'all have no culture. Who are you? Telling me what to do? Huh. Cerebrit rebuked, seemingly finding the confidence to speak from nowhere. My name is Orden Carries and I'm just stating the obvious. An adamantite adventurer such as yourself shouldn't be flirting with a minor. She's clearly uncomfortable with the situation. Leave her be. The sentence uttered by Citronides got under the pervert's skin. Leave her be. Cerebrate asked as if almost taken aback by Citrinida's demand. Do you know who you're talking to? The alchemist was quick to retort. Yeah, pretty much. A pedophile and pervert, right? What a disgusting combination of traits. Faint giggles could be heard in the guild hall, with a few adventurers doing their very best to hold their laugh in from Citrinida's quick talk. The pedophile growled out of frustration. His anger was already through the roof, but this just made him even more furious. How dare you? How dare you talk to the leader of Shalltear like that? With haste, the pervert drew his sword from the scabbard attached to his back. Learn your place, foo-paralysis. Cerebrate was cut off from speaking when he suddenly felt his entire body go numb. What were you about to say? Learn your place. Well, clearly you've learned that your place is on the floor. The guildhall suddenly burst into a fit of laughter at the sight of a defeated Cerebrate. Alas, the pedophile couldn't do anything. He couldn't move his arms or legs. Hell, he couldn't talk even for the life of him. All he could do was look on with fury as adventurers mocked him. Now, there are two options for you here, Cerebrate, Citrinida's stated once the surrounding adventurers finally got a hold of their laugh. I came here for the same reason you did. To complete the Adamantite ranked quest. So, I could just leave you like this and complete the quest by myself. But, that would be quite rude of me and I like to be fair on occasions. The other option is for you to accompany me and complete the quest together. It would be wise to have each other's backs when fighting beastmen, especially in a deep forest. No. With a wave of his hand, Citrinida's dispelled the effects of magic on Cerebrate, making him able to move his body again. Unlike before, Cerebrate didn't act rash, even though the will to restore his dignity said otherwise. I guess you've learned your lesson then? Possibly even thought of a choice between the two offers. TCH, the clump of cells only clicked his tongue with annoyance. Fine, I'll take your offer on teaming up for the quest, Orden carries. He said grimly and with clear disdain at being defeated. Citrinida's only huffed. Everything is sorted out, folks. You can go back to your previous activities. Citrinida's said in a loud voice. His command seemingly worked as adventurers went back to what they were doing. However, there were still a couple of gazes thrown in their direction. Citrinida's walked towards the slightly less startled receptionist. You've already overheard our conversation. Isn't that right, miss? The alchemist asked nicely, to which the shy receptionist nodded. Excellent. Now, why don't you give us the details of the quest so we can be on our merry way? Time skip. Hours. The journey to where the quest took place was a silent one. Not that Citrinida's wanted to talk. But it was the fact that Cerebrate was acting like a spoiled brat. If Citrinida's asked the simple question, how was your day? Cerebrate would say something along the lines of, wouldn't you like to know, weather boy? While it wasn't the end of the world and having small talk wasn't required, it did get under the alchemist's skin, ever so slightly. His personality sucks. The thought was a no-brainer. Even a person like Philip could grasp that concept. He acts like a bratty child after being told off. It was probably the fact that I mocked his ass in the guild hall. I'd do that over and over again if I have to. The plague doctor concluded. On an unrelated note, Cerebrate didn't come with the rest of his team. Most likely being jealous of my accomplishments and decided to do this quest solo to suck up to the queen. In the end, none of that mattered. Even if Cerebrate refused to utter a single phrase, Citrinida's had all the information he needed regarding skills and levels. He didn't really care about the man's upbringing or thoughts on the political and economic state of the world. The pedo is nothing special. No talents along with a baseline of common martial arts, with a few exceptions. Though having surprising strength for his figure, his sword skills are subpar at best. Slightly worse than Gazef's. Though I want to see them in action once we fight beastmen so I can get a proper grasp of what he can do. The brief thought of talent did sidetrack Citrinida's focus away from walking. Talents, surprisingly haven't met anyone with a talent. Well, there is Enfiria. I haven't met the guy but I presume I can't experiment with him as he's off limits. The next best options are Evil Eye from Blue Rose and that Archie fellow. I do have potential plans for the latter. There's also Zeshi but I won't have to deal with her for a really long time. Basically, I need to provide results to INS as I'm the head of magic. As Citrinida's was lost in his thoughts, he noticed the faintest of movements from the side of his mask within the messy tree lean. It was so quick and quiet, it was as if nothing was ever there. Luckily, Citrinida's was a level 100 being. Such cheap tricks were useless against him. So, beastmen are already starting to lurk, huh? If Citrinida's wasn't wearing a mask, you would have been met with an unsettling smile. This should be a treat. It's been a while since something interesting happened. I've been walking with this fucker for God knows how long. Citrinida's continued to act the way he did as if he had never seen the beastmen in the first place. Thankfully, the plague doctor didn't have to wait long for the small group of stalking beastmen to catch Cerebrate and himself off guard. The silent beastmen group, numbering 4 in total, didn't idle around. Instead, using their split-second advantage of surprising the duo, they attacked. With 2 aiming for the pervert while the other 2 went for the alchemist. How interesting, these beastmen are leopards. They must excel in ambushes or espionage based on their racial traits. Citrinida's noted to himself. Shit. Cerebrate exclaimed at the sudden appearance of 2 fairly powerful-looking beastmen that rushed in his direction. With sword in hand, the pedophile got into a proper stance before chanting out a few martial arts. Ability boost, greater ability boost, severing blade. With the final martial art, Cerebrit gloriously charged toward one of the leopard-like beastmen. The first beastman that Cerebrit attacked simply jumped out of danger while the second took advantage of an opening within Cerebrit's stance. With a simple swipe, the second beastman severely damaged the right side of the pedophile's magnificent armor. Gah! Cerebrit shouted from pain as trails of blood slowly seeped out of where he had been wounded. To damage my armor like that? Those claws are really dangerous. Those legs which these beastmen use to evade attacks don't help my cause. Cerebrit dismissed those thoughts before chanting another chain of martial arts. Dull pain, body strengthening. With the pain in the side of his stomach relieving, Cerebrit was able to focus more clearly. Glaring at the two beastmen in front of him, the man shouted one more martial art. Lightning flash. The sword Cerebrit tightly held quickly crackled a flash of yellow lightning as he leapt into the air with grandeur. If any normal human saw this, they would have thought a god of lightning descended from Valhalla. The furs on the two beastmen were quick to stand tall from the static. It wouldn't be an exaggeration to describe the surrounding area as an electric field. Alas, like last time, the two beastmen simply evaded the attack from the fierce flash. The area he aimed for turned into nothing but ash from the aftermath of the special martial art. Trees, the ground, and even small insects were scorched from electricity. Cerebrit heavily exhaled from the amount of stamina he used. He felt like most of his body was drained of energy. These beastmen, why are they so fast? They're able to surpass me in speed? How? I'm the fierce flash for fuck's sake. He internally shouted. Not wanting to be taken advantage of in his current state, Cerebrit stood up as he took another stance. However, as he did, he noticed a familiar person standing next to two knocked out beastmen. This person was none other than Citronidas, who simply used paralysis on his targets. What? Cerebrit shouted with shock and confusion. Orden is already finished with the beastmen that attacked him? I haven't even laid a scratch on any of my opponents. It was truly an embarrassing moment for the pervert. While he was struggling to fight some measly beastmen, Citronidas was already done and watching the man struggle. Really? Citronidas sarcastically questioned. You can't handle some weak and measly beastmen, Cerebrit? At this rate, the queen would have no use for you. Think smarter, not harder. Shouldn't every adamantite adventurer know this? Mere words such as fury or anger couldn't describe the pure malice Cerebrit had for Citronidas at the very moment. Anyways, I think I've seen enough from you, pedophile. I'll be taking over things from here. Before Cerebrit could react, Citronidas waved his hand horizontally as the pervert grew tired. What's happening to? The pedophile fell to the forest floor, too tired to stand up as he slept. A simple knockout spell. How useful. Anyways, I'll be sure to alter some memories of the situation. That or gaslighting him into believing what I say. The alchemist thought to himself. Now, to the other two beastmen that was fighting the dumbass, come out to the open. Let's have a chat. The beastmen kept silent, not coming out of their hidden location. I already know where you are. Behind the trees not too far away from me. If you don't want to have a civil conversation, that's perfectly fine. I'm not forcing you to. However, when I do capture you, what I do to your friends is what I'll do to you. Citronidas gestured to the immobile beastman next to him as an ominous incantation formed in front of his hand. Abruptly, the two beastmen started to jitter. It was tame at first. A muscle spasm in the finger, then a leg convulsion. Then another, and another, and another. It didn't take long for both bodies to start thrashing as their life depended on it. A black foam-like substance slowly crept its way out their mouths before the sound of choking filled the area. Blood erupted from every orifice out of the body like a geyser which formed a thick pool of red beneath their spasming bodies. In a grand finale, the bloodied spasming bodies of the beastmen exploded, thus, ending the gore session that would have put satraps to shame. Mist of blood floated around the area, covering the trees and grounds in red as organs hung from branches, similar to birthday party decorations. If a priest from the slain theocracy witnessed what just occurred, they would have thought a demon was being exorcised. Well, that spell was slightly gorier than initially expected. Poor beastmen, due to paralysis, they couldn't even scream out in pain. The threat of being killed so cruelly made the remaining two beastmen come out of hiding with shivering legs. Citronitz gave a pleased hum. It's good to see some smart beastmen every now and then. Now, as long as you answer my questions, you'll be relatively fine. In fact, as long as you cooperate, I'll grant you the privilege of mercy. Citronidas took the beastmen's silence as a yes. I presume that you were sent here to scout the area once my team decimated the raid party back in Karka, am I right? The alchemist asked, to which the first beastman Cerebrit attempted to kill slowly nodded. Yes. He replied meekly with clear deceit. I can tell you're lying. Do it one more time and you end up like your friends. The alchemist stated with authority, making the beastman gulp with fear. My team was sent to scout the area. But, that wasn't the only reason why we were dispatched here. We were ordered to lure and exterminate Hope. The appearance of Cerebrit was only a bonus. I suppose that was an order by one of your superiors in the Beastman Nation, right? Both beastmen nodded in unison. While I did expect something like this to occur, this soon, I guess the king of the Beastman Nation is quite smart. Sending elite troops to get rid of me early on. I'll keep him in mind with future plans. Tell me what the king is like. There haven't been any reliable sources back in Cleus. Maybe the capital or Gale has some information. But, either I haven't been there yet or just haven't had the time. All I know is that the king, named Clafoth, is a strong panda with a knack for female humans. This time, the second beastman spoke. Strong would be an understatement. His Excellency is an absolute behemoth even by beastman standards, he said with confidence. Really? What tier of magic can he use? Citrinides asked, his tone sounding almost sarcastic. I do not know the truth. I'm just a soldier in an espionage unit. Some sources from within the palace speculate that His Excellency can use 4th tier magic. Others say that he can use 5th tier magic. I do hope this answer can satisfy you. The second beastman replied with an odd sincerity. 4th to 5th tier magic, huh? That's nothing. At best, the king is level 35. Anything below level 40 is pretty much useless to Nazarick. Though, the beastman may have some hidden ace to make even a beastman of this caliber respect him. For now, I'll rank Clafuth around the same as Gojin, between level 35 and 40. However, I'll need to see the king in person to properly assess his skills. The plague doctor internally smiled from the somewhat helpful info. A few more questions. What have recent political affairs been like in the beastman nation? Citrinides politely asked, which sounded more like a demand for the two beastmen. Politics? I tend to keep my head out of the subject as things get quite messy. But in terms of close relations, His Excellency isn't on the best of terms with the great Minotaur nation and the Sea City. The plague doctor pondered for a brief instant. Those two places. I do want to visit these areas in the future. I do know some things about the Minotaur nation from the wiki. The Sea City? Not so much. As the head of magic within Nazarick, going there to explore and study the area would be an obvious thing to do. I'll be sure to add those areas of interest when reporting to Inns and Demiurge once I'm back in Nazarick. I can understand the reasons for conflict with the great Minotaur nation. You know, with that country being one of the 6 central powers and wanting to expand their influence. But the Sea City? Only baseless rumors or fabricated stories. Please fill me in on the subject. The alchemist replied with odd politeness, making the furs on the beastman slightly shiver with fear. As far as relations have been with the Sea City in the past, things were peaceful. They didn't mess with us and vice versa. It has only been in recent years that a leading figure for the place has taken the liberty of expanding the Sea City's influence by infringing on our territory. The first beastman stated, making the alchemist internally rub his chin. Interesting, very interesting. I do remember something on the wiki stating that the Sea City might have been the result of player influence. The whole city might be a guild base and this leading figure an NPC. That brings into question if actual players are located there. Too much speculation. The Sea City is a topic for another time in the far future. Citrinides huffed while crossing his arms. I appreciate the information you've provided me. You don't have to answer any more of my questions. My curiosity is satisfied for now and I can do more research another time. As I mentioned earlier, for cooperating with me, you will be granted mercy. The two beastmen formed a smile with their animalistic mouths. Alas, before they could vocalize their gratitude, a toxic green incantation formed over the palm of Citrinides' right hand. Miasma. The plague doctor said loud enough for the beastmen to hear. Wadash. The beastmen suddenly felt a sharp pain in their stomachs, as if they were stabbed by 100 white-hot needles. Despite that, the pain quickly receded as they grew dizzy and their mouths started to fill with foam. White cats, happening, to me. You see it, mercy. They said with confusion as their words got harder to understand. I said I would give mercy, to which I did. In Nazarick, death is the ultimate mercy. A way to end all pain. I wish you a safe journey to the afterlife. The beastman fell motionless on the blood-stained ground, leaving Citrinides standing alone. Welp, that was cringy to say. Whatever, I should probably alter Cerebrit's memories and wake him before heading to Egale. On second thought, I'll just alter his memories then carry him unconscious to the guild and tell everyone how pathetically he fought some simple beastman. Yeah, that seems about right for how much of a scumbag this dude is. Time skip. Hours. Are you sure you don't want to claim your quest rewards, Orden sir? The guild receptionist of Egale questioned rather shyly. You can drop the formalities, guild receptionist. Just call me Orden like everyone else. And yes, I don't need the reward. You can put the gold towards a better cause like improving the country or donating it to the unfortunate. Citrinides summed up like he usually did. Very well, S.I. Orden. On an unrelated note, I've been dying to say this all day but, thank you for what you did earlier in the morning. I greatly appreciate it. The receptionist said with enthusiasm as her voice gained more clarity. It's nothing, really. I'm just doing what I'm supposed to do. The alchemist replied as he typically did before taking a quick glance out the window. Anyways, by the color of the sky right now, it will be night soon. I should just get some rest before heading back to Cleus tomorrow. The lady seemed slightly taken aback by Citrinides' statement. However, not from being offended. Leaving Egale so soon? You've barely explored the city? Besides, there are plenty of quests to complete here. She argued, doing her best to try and convince the alchemist to stay just a bit longer. Citrinides deeply pondered about what to do next. That is true. Perhaps there's a library here that I can go through and increase my knowledge of general history or important figures. It's not like I'm in some rush to head back to Cleus. I pretty much know the city like the back of my hand at this point. I have around 6 days, 5 days starting tomorrow until the Lizardman arc starts. And within that time frame, I should visit the Queen back in the capital. The capital isn't too far away from Egale, right receptionist? I'm supposed to meet with the Queen sometime within the week. Citronides stated, making the receptionist go into another thought. Well, the time to travel from here to the capital is at least half as long as it is to go from here to Cleus. In that case, I might actually slightly alter some of my plans. Starting tomorrow, I'll stay here for 2 days before spending the rest of my days in the capital. I'm sure Death and Shalltear wouldn't mind the change of plans. Citronides concluded, happy with the turn of events. In that case, I'll take you up on that offer of staying in Igale a little longer. Getting to know the city isn't a bad idea at all, the plague doctor said with the utmost sincerity. The receptionist only gave a warm smile as Citronides waved her a good night, heading to a nearby inn. Not wanting his companions worried about his whereabouts, Citronides cast message, not before casting multiple anti-divination spells, to inform Death and Shalltear about the change of plans. Hello, Death. Citronides said in his mind, slightly startling the ice demoness before she regained her composure. Darling? I didn't expect a message from you. What is the occasion? She questioned with clear enthusiasm in her mind. I just wanted to inform you that there has been a slight change of plans. I won't be heading back to Cleus. I'll be staying at Igale before visiting the capital. You'll see me once we head back to Nazarick. Is that understood? Though saddened by the fact that Death couldn't see her beloved for a while longer, she understood. Yes, beloved. See you later. Huh, that wasn't so bad, was it? Oddly enough, that was the first time using message. Kinda cool that I could just have a chat with someone by just talking in my mind. I guess I should inform Shalltear now. Like before, Citronides cast another message. This time, for the petite vampire. Hello, Citronides couldn't even finish what he was about to say as Shalltear instantly replied. However, not with the type of response the alchemist was expecting. Citronides' voice in my head. Oh, this feels so good. Harder, daddy? Fill me up with your huge load? More? Why yes, I'm about to. Citronides snapped out of his shocked state, cancelling the message spell before things got nasty. I should have known that Shalltear was, well, being Shalltear. I presume Death will inform her about the situation tomorrow. Oh well, I should get some sleep now and do my best to dismiss. Ugh, I don't even want to think about it. Chapter 18, The Queen's New Hope. Time skip, 2 days. Narrator's POV. Citronides gave a low hum as his arm dangled from the windowsill of the carriage he was in. The sound of galloping horses filled the silent atmosphere of the moving vehicle before it was broken by a sigh. Ah, what an uneventful day it has been, the alchemist internally thought. And an uneventful day it has been, at least for him. For the better part of half a day, Citronides sat in his carriage with nothing to do. Well, that may have been a slight exaggeration. There were occasional pit stops to feed the horses or to relieve yourself, along with talking to the driver. But that was the full extent of things. Citronides only had his thoughts and the view to mitigate some of his boredom. Well, things could be worse. If I can handle a decade worth of doing jack shit, I can handle this, no issues. Besides, we should be arriving at the capital any moment now, Citronides thought to himself, focusing on the more positive aspects of things. It didn't take long for Citronides to arrive at the Dragon Kingdom's capital. The grand stone walls made sure to emphasize the fact quite clearly. The carriage slowed down as it neared the iron gates that were guarded by some simple guards. The driver briefly talked with one of the guards before showing some proper identification. With a simple nod and a shout saying let them in, Citronides' carriage continued to move on before finally coming to a halt near the Adventurers Guild. The diver hopped off his seat and over the poles that kept the horses in place before opening the alchemist's door. You've arrived at your destination, Orden Carries. I dropped you off not too far away from the Adventurers Guild as that place has all the information you'd need. It's basically the hub for everything in the capital that isn't politics. You'd have to go to the royal castle for that, haha. The plague doctor reciprocated the man's laugh with a friendly chuckle. Thank you, Desmos. You don't need to tell me where the guild is. Only a fool could miss a building like the guild. Anyways, enough rambling. Citronides formed a small, black void in the air before putting his hand in it. I know I already paid you at the start. However, someone like you deserves a bit extra. Consider this a bonus for your hard work. Citronides lightly chucked the sack of coins to Desmos as he caught it. With confusion, the driver briefly opened the sack before his eyes went wide at examining its contents. What? He said to himself, almost not believing what he saw. This is easily twice what you paid me, and thrice that amount. There is no need to be this generous, good sir. Desmos argued with sincerity and honesty. It's fine, really. I have plenty of wealth, not even including my quest rewards. You probably deserve it more than I do. Your family won't go hungry for months. The driver was doing his best to hold back the tears in his eyes. Are you sure? He asked, to which Citronides only nodded. I'm sure, he stated. Desmos sucked up his emotions before wiping away a tear. I can see why people already admire you. You're far better than Cerebrit, that's for certain. Citronides only shrugged from the compliment. I get that plenty as of late. Anyways, I should be going. Don't want to waste the rest of the afternoon here, do I? Desmos realized his mistake before needlessly bowing. Very well, Sir Orden Carries. You can drop the sir. Very well, Orden Carries. I'll take my leave now that my job is done. The driver quickly got back on his carriage before galloping away, not before shouting praise to the adventurer, leaving Citronides to his own thoughts and devices. I could always make more gold. Besides, the guy needs it more than I do. No point in hoarding it all when I could improve my image by helping the people. Anyways, I should get going to the Capitals Guild now. Time skip, 15 minutes. Scene change. When will he come here? To say that Draudelian Auricula's had a sense of nervousness would have underplayed how she actually felt. The feeling was similar to a young child waiting for their birthday. Except instead of a child and a birthday, it was a queen eager to meet an adventurer. Perhaps a better comparison was a person meeting their idol in a meet and greet. Nonetheless, the thought of the elusive and powerful Orden Carries never left her mind since the first time she heard of his achievements. There's only 4 days in the week left. Keep it cool, Draudelian. There's still plenty of time for him to meet with me. 4 days is long enough for him to come here. But what if it isn't? If the queen were in her bed, she'd be screaming in her pillow from anticipation. While she was contemplating, a loud and echoey knock came from the throne room door, making the queen jolt from surprise and abrupting her train of thought. Enter, she shouted with a minor stutter, still slightly shocked by the sudden sound. With a loud creak of the throne room door came our favorite messenger boy, Bob, who was dressed in his simple butler outfit per usual. Bob, what brings you here? I didn't call for you to come here, did I? Draudelian asked with confusion. No, your majesty. I do apologize for my sudden intrusion. However, I believe that it would be most beneficial to inform you about the knowledge I've acquired. The queen quickly processed what the messenger said before speaking. Go on, Draudelian stated as she got into a more comfortable position atop her throne. Reports state that Orden Carries has arrived in the Cappy-what? The queen screamed in quite a comical outburst, making Bob flinch from how loud she was. I mean, what? Please tell me more, Draudelian said, this time not erupting like an active volcano. That's about it. Unfortunately, Orden arrived in the capital not even 15 minutes ago. The only piece of information I have is that he's without his team and in the capital's Adventurers Guild. The queen gulped the forming saliva in her mouth. Well, what are you waiting for? Get him here now, she said frantically. The fantastic messenger boy furiously nodded at his queen's demand as he quickly rushed out of the throne room, leaving Draudelian to her own devices. It wasn't until Bob shut the throne room door that the queen realized something. Wait a fucking moment. Orden Carries is coming here? To this castle? I have nothing prepared. Wait, Bob, come back. I need you to help me get the servants ready. Time skip. Scene change. Citronidas sat in one of the more secluded areas of the guild, wanting some peace and quiet while he read the pamphlet in his hands. The Wonders of Entoros, the title read. To the dismay of some, the Dragon Kingdom did have a proper name for their capital, it being Entoros. Whether it was a good name or not, you'd have to bring that conversation to Brightness Dragon Lord, who coined it. Ironic. It mentions wonders but there are basically none. Well, that's expected as this country is crumbling to pieces thanks to the beastmen nation. The alchemist concluded, folding the pamphlet up before turning the thing to ash with a silent, fire-based spell. Well, the pamphlet did mention that there was a grand library of sorts near the royal castle. Hopefully, the place is more loaded with textbooks compared to the simple and small ones back in Cleus or Gale. I kinda hoped they were big and had unique books. You can't get everything. As Citronidas was deep in his thoughts, the alchemist noticed the clatter of footsteps getting closer to where he sat. Curious as to who was heading towards him, the plague doctor turned his head in the direction of the sound. The man, who may have very well been 19 that was walking towards Citronidas, wore nothing but a simple and slightly fancy butler attire. This isn't an adventurer or a guild staff, the man's attire makes that for certain. Perhaps he's a servant of some rich noble that wants to talk? I heard plenty of the nobles here act like dirty dishwater. You must be Orden Carries, right? The butler hesitantly asked, slightly fidgeting with his fingers. Yes, and who are you? Citronidas retorted. Though he didn't have any ill intent, his tone sounded more sarcastic than genuine and confused. I'm Bob. The simple phrase made the alchemist flabbergasted. Some would even say discombobulated. Bob, he asked as if he was making sure he was hearing things properly. Indeed, Sir Orden Carries. My name is Bob. Honestly, I didn't expect such a simple name in this world where parents call their children Jerkniv Rune Farlord El Nix, Renner Theora Chardalan Ryle Vyself, Lakius Alvain Dale Indra or Archie Eeb Ryle Furt. Now that I think about it, how the hell do I remember their long-ass names? Oh well. Bob, it's certainly a better name compared to something like Doyle. What? Anyways, what brings you here, Bob? An autograph, perhaps? Citronidas questioned. Well yes, but actually no. While I'm a big fan of your work and do want an autograph, I'm actually here on behalf of the queen herself. The alchemist's eyes lit up from behind his amazing-looking mask. You had my curiosity, but now you have my attention. Hearing Citronidas' reply, Bob continued his explanation. In simple terms, the queen wants to meet her nation's recently ascended adamantite-ranked adventurer. I could only presume you already know this as you've come to Entoros. As far as I know, the meeting is going to be like a private lunch. Just you, Her Majesty, and Prime Minister Brithan. The plague doctor gave a low hum, processing the information Bob said. Interesting, very interesting. I would have thought I'd have met the queen in front of her entire political crew such as nobles and the likes. An unexpected but welcome surprise. And over lunch too, that shouldn't cause too much of a hassle, would it? Well, I have nothing to do for the day as the quests here are simple and not that important in the grand scheme of things. Considering that, I'll gladly accept the Queen's invitation to meet her over lunch. Citronides replied with an eager sincerity, to which Bob nodded in understanding. Very well, he started. In that case, do you mind if I escort you to Her Majesty in the royal castle? The alchemist nodded. Then follow me. If you have any questions, I'll do my best to answer them. You could sign my butler suit with your signature on the way to the royal castle. Time skip. Scene change. Draudelian Orichalus sat on her throne as usual. This time, her arm rested on the armrest of the throne while her cheek lay on her opened palm. Do you know when Ordincaries is supposed to arrive, Brithan? She questioned in the same way a child would ask, are we there yet during a field trip? No, your majesty. Do I look like a psychic to you? The prime minister replied in the most monotone yet sarcastic voice a human could possibly create. No. She trailed off, slightly embarrassed from the call-out. I'm just so, how do I describe this, a mix of anxiety and excitement? I'm not too sure how to describe it. It's nothing really. Brithan was quick to rebuke as usual with his emotionless and tired voice. Draudelian only sighed at his usual stoic behavior. It's just I've heard how nice and noble Ordincaries is compared to the other powerful adventurers, mercenaries, and workers within the Dragon Kingdom. He's generous, polite, not a pedophile, and powerful to boot. Like, 5th tier magic? I know such a feat is possible as Fleder Paradine reached 6th. However, that's only due to him being 200 years old. And how old is Ordincaries? Nobody knows? Furthermore, he and his team can slay beastmen with ease. Ease? Not even that pervert could accomplish such a feat, maybe a few beastmen but not an entire raid party. With such power and his nice personality, he seems like a blessing from the 4 great gods. Have you finished your chattering? God, you're so vexing. Brithan covered a yawn from hearing the Queen's lengthy rambling session which could have put countless people to sleep. Humph, Draudelian only huffed with slight annoyance. I'm not wrong, am I? She muttered under her breath. Brithan, who heard what the Queen said, didn't reply to her. Without notice, the duo sat in an oddly tense awkward silence. It wasn't until the Queen, as usual, broke it. Are you sure don't know when Ordincaries is supposed to arrive, Brithan? The tired Prime Minister only rolled his eyes. Did you not? Brithan's talking was quickly interrupted when he and the Queen heard quick-paced footsteps come closer towards the throne room. Without warning, the throne room's door burst open only to reveal our favorite messenger boy, Bob. Bob, the Queen exclaimed with excitement. She was quickly interrupted when the messenger boy confirmed her question. Yes, your majesty. Ordincaries has arrived and is waiting where you've assigned me to place him, Bob said diligently, making the Queen's heart race. The Queen quickly hopped out of her throne before tugging on Brithan's arm. You heard Bob? Hurry up. I don't want Ordincaries to think I'm tardy. It'll leave a bad impression on me. The Prime Minister only sighed with frustration. Yes. Let's go. Time skip, 2 minutes. Scene change. Citronides sat alone in a rather small dining hall with only his thoughts to accompany him. Why? He had been instructed by the messenger boy Bob to wait patiently while the Queen and the Prime Minister got ready. While waiting may seem like a chore for some people, the alchemist didn't mind waiting at all. In fact, he quite enjoyed the quiet space provided to him so he could think. I need to make a report for Demiurge Endins once I arrive back in Nazarick. What I should mainly focus on is slipping parts of what I know about the plot into the report. Something like how world items make you immune to wild magic. If I could do that by learning what wild magic is from the Queen, Nazarick would be better off in the future. Of course, I'll add in all the stuff about the Dragon Kingdom, Sea City, and whatnot. I'll figure out the logistics of things once all this stuff is over. It didn't take long before the Queen and the Prime Minister entered the room that held the dining hall. The creaking of the door and loud footsteps made sure to signify to Citronides that the wait was over. So that's what Queen Draudelian and the Prime Minister look like, the alchemist concluded. Queen Draudelian Orichalus was dressed as per usual. With her cute facial features such as her eyes, height equivalent to that of a child, and almost elf-like ears, her revealing clothes only boosted her visual appeal. The must be her child form. It sickens me that disgusting people such as Cerebrit find this of all things sexually attractive. Demiurge would seem like a saint to what I have in store for the pedophile in the Happy Farm. In time he will get what he deserves. In contrast, Prime Minister Brithan was the polar opposite. To some women, he could be considered handsome if it weren't for the emotionless and tired face. His messy, short black hair oddly complemented his tuxedo. Other than that, there wasn't really anything else that stood out from him. The Prime Minister looks like an edgy and depressed teen. Except take away the edgy teen part. Image of Prime Minister. You must be Prime Minister Brithan and Her Majesty, Queen Draudelian Orichalus. It is an honor to meet you both. Citronides opened up as the pair got seated down. Likewise, Ordincaries, Draudelian rebuked. I've heard plenty about your achievements and wanted to meet you in person for a while. Words cannot express how grateful I am for you to be here. The petite queen said with absolute sincerity and gave a warm smile that could melt any person's heart. It's nothing, really. Citronides said, doing his best to act modestly. I'm just doing my job as an adventurer, which is to help the people of this nation by keeping it safe. The Queen smiled at the response while the Prime Minister didn't say anything. Fantastic? I'm assuming that you haven't had anything to eat as of yet. The journey from Egale to Entoros must have taken at least half the day, right? The alchemist only nodded to her question. Not that he was hungry. No, Citronides ate some food from his inventory during the trip to the capital. He only nodded out of respect and politeness. Furthermore, Citronides wasn't one to refuse free food. The queen only clapped twice before the doors she previously entered opened again. This time, a handful of servants brought multiple, freshly made dishes on carts toward the table the trio sat at. The servants did their servants' things, setting up the dishes for each person before quietly leaving. Draudelian looked at the non-eating adventurer before she came to a small realization. Is he waiting for my approval to start eating? How distinguished of him. Virtually nobody does this, especially those pig-like nobles and Cerebrit. Orden carries, my view of you only goes up higher and higher. It's okay to start eating, Orden carries. Someone such as yourself doesn't need my approval for something as trivial as lunch. Please, help yourself. The queen spoke with sweetness. Oh shit, I zoned out for a moment. Does the queen think improper of me now? Nah, that shouldn't really matter in the grand scheme of things. I should start eating this food now. Very well, your majesty. The plague doctor was briefly interrupted from speaking. You can drop the your majesty but. In private occasions like this, you can refer to me as Draudelian and the prime minister as Brithan. The prime minister gave a slow nod at Draudelian's statement. Very well, Draudelian, said Citronides, slightly putting some emphasis on the queen's name. The alchemist then picked up his cutlery and retracted his mask halfway up his face so that only his mouth was revealed. Afterwards, Citronides started to slowly eat the food on his plate, processing its taste. Seeing that Citronides started to eat, Draudelian and Brithan followed suit. So, tell me a bit about yourself, Orden carries. If it isn't too personal, that is. I just want to get to know my nation's recent savior and hero, the queen asked between bites of her lunch. Well, Citronides took a slight pause, taking a quick moment to gather his thoughts. What do you want to know about me? It's such a broad question I don't even know where to begin. Draudelian slightly blushed from embarrassment. How about this, I'll briefly run you down on my life and vice versa. That way we can disregard the rumors we have about each other. Fair. The queen nodded. Well, my team and I came from an isolationist nation in the Far East. We wanted to leave our country and explore the world, so to speak. That's at least one of the reasons why we left. I won't bore you with all the reasons as that's a multi-layered answer which would take too long to explain. So, that should be the full gist of things on that front. Anyways, fast forward a bit and here we are in the Dragon Kingdom. Citronides did his best to keep things rather ambiguous while trying to satisfy the queen's curiosity. Pretty much everything minus one statement was already public knowledge to the Dragon Kingdom's populace. However, Draudelian seemed fine with the response, nodding with what he said. Now, tell me about yourself, Citronides replied back. I heard that you could use wild magic. Is that true? The queen finished swallowing the food in her mouth before responding back. Well, technically I can. That's because I have true Dragon Lord blood flowing through my veins. However, that only accounts for 1/8 of my blood. For that reason, I cannot control my wild magic very well and I'm both a true and false Dragon Lord. This is going to end up more like an interview rather than a simple lunch. It doesn't matter to me, Citronides thought to himself as he continued to listen to Draudelian. Anyhow, the whole magic system is rather useless. The cost of casting a spell with wild magic isn't worth the result, at least for me. The weaker the descendant, the greater amount of souls needed for sacrifice. Utterly useless. The queen's eyes slightly widened after realizing she went on a slight rant. My bad for talkie. Citronides stopped her dead in her tracks. No need to apologize. In fact, I'm quite intrigued about wild magic as a whole. The idea of a lost art captivates me greatly. My goodness, just fucking kiss already. Stop it with this stupid ass, sexual tension. Brithan muttered under his breath, making Draudelian blush from embarrassment again. Don't mind Brithan. He's always like this. The queen meekly replied. Citronides ignored the prime minister's remark entirely, focusing on greater topics in his mind. I already know all this. Thank God my memories aren't failing me yet. However, I would prefer some info on wild magic that wasn't said in the Overlord wiki to provide to Ins or Demiurge. I wonder if Draudelian has a book or some items related to wild magic. Meh, I'm here for 4 more days. I could always ask her later. Now to answer your question, I think my great-grandfather gave me some old texts on the subject. I haven't used them in ages so, I don't mind passing them to you for a while. As for items? Sadly, I have no clue. The alchemist flashed a smile. Perfect. He stated. Textbooks should be fine. I remember reading that wild magic items were extremely hard to produce due to the magic's corruption. I could always steal the wild magic ring off by Gazef, which was held by Regret and later passed on to Climb. Straying away from the personal questions, I would like to ask you if you had any information on the Beastmen nation. With their recent attacks, I fear that another city would be taken from my country. Cleus, Voigt, and Verpolis were already hard blows. However, it would be the nail in the coffin for my people if a city like Cleus fell. Baharuth is hesitant to aid us and the theocracy recently pulled out their forces. Draudelian gave a heavy sigh, dampening the atmosphere severely. Damn, the queen really has a lot on her plate, huh? The alchemist thought to himself. No need to brood, Draudelian. I can guarantee you that beastmen won't be an issue in the coming months. But, there may or may not be another, scarier threat near the demonic incursion for Orden to fight. The queen slightly bowed her head in appreciation. As for any relevant information mentioned by some beastmen I fought, they did mention that the nation has its own issues. The sentence caught the petite queen's attention. Apparently, the Sea City is making a move onto beastmen territory, breaking their non-aggression pact. Then there's also the matter with the Great Minotaur Nation. However, tensions between the two have always been high, so that's probably information you already know. Citrinides summed up. Sea City? Huh. The queen said to herself in a tone similar to an old person reminiscing on the past. That place is quite mysterious. So many ridiculous rumors surrounding it. I don't know much about that area. However, I do know that there's some fanatic dolphin claiming to be the hand of Yahweh and uses a machine gun via my great-grandfather. Whatever that means. So, there's that? If that isn't the description of a fucking NPC, then I don't know what is. That is probably one of the most outlandish things I've heard of to date. What's this dolphin going to wear? A fucking Pope outfit? Please, give me a break. Interesting, very interesting. Citrinides faked processing the information before continuing. Other than that, I have no more relevant information regarding the Beastmen Nation. If you want, I could always sneak into the country to gather INF-. There is no need for that. I mean, no need to get yourself hurt like that. I mean, I have no need for such a thing. The queen fumbled on her words as Brithan rolled his eyes. Citrinides only slightly scoffed playfully before finishing his food. Well, I'm stuffed. Thank you for providing me with this meal. And don't forget to send my regards to the chef. The meal was nothing short but a delight to eat. It was pretty shit compared to the food in Nazarick, being completely honest. As Citrinides got up to leave, the queen grabbed his arm tightly. Wait, you're not leaving so soon, right? And you're also not staying in an inn, right? You could just stay in one of the guest suites. That's right. Stay in one of the guest suites, please. Draudelian begged, making Citrinides pause. Well, doing such is certainly convenient. There should be a library grander than the Grand Library outside. Furthermore, I can virtually ask any question to the queen at any moment. I see this as an absolute win. It would be my pleasure to stay in your castle, Draudelian, Citrinides replied. Perfect, I'll talk with the servants to get your room set up for your stay. You can ask me anything while you're here. Take care, Orden carries. Draudelian said earnestly. Citrinides gave his thanks to the queen right after, leaving the Prime Minister and Draudelian by themselves. You have a crush on the adamantite adventurer, am I correct? The queen's cheeks lit up to a light shade of red. No, she trailed off. Maybe. It's just, he makes my heart flutter, that's all. Chapter 19, Nazarick time skip. 4 days. Scene change. Goodbye, Orden carries? Till we meet again. Citrinides turned his head to face Draudelian once more. The alchemist looked towards the upper half of the royal castle to where her voice came from. More specifically, an open window where he saw the queen waving with both her arms in the air like her life depended on it. The queen and her usual antics, huh? It's an unexpected, but welcome surprise. I mean, I certainly prefer her personality over other rulers that talk too much about politics or are drunk on greed. I'll have doppelgangers take the form of myself, Esthetha's and Shalltear's adventurer personas to complete quests here and there. So, it'll be roughly around a month before I see her again. Not like she'll know the difference between the real and the fake Orden carries. Citrinides raised his hand slightly into the air and waved back before turning around and walking away from the royal castle. This trip has been useful and quite entertaining. Getting out of the alchemy lab was a needed change of pace. Exploring a part of Overlord which was briefly covered in the series was a thrilling experience. Furthermore, my handling of Esteth and Shalltear was better compared to before. Well, I'm still worried about the atrocities they commit as a pastime along with their needy tendencies. However, I'm not locking myself in a lab for days on end because of it. At least not anymore. Once the was far away from the royal castle, and any other person for that matter, Citrinides opened a gate back to the entrance of Nazarick. Not before changing back to his typical outfit. Per usual with gate, Citrinides walked through the opening in reality like nothing, leaving the Dragon Kingdom. Not even a millisecond after the portal closed, Citrinides was immediately jumped by two powerful forces. Those forces were none other than Esteth and Shalltear, who were very eager to meet the alchemist after such a long time. Citrinides, I've missed you. Both women shouted in unison as they attempted to latch onto the plague doctor like a parasite. Teleportation. Citrinides, with his quick thinking, teleported out of their reach before his soul was squeezed out of his body. The troublesome duo, with nothing to cushion their jump, fell to the ground with a thud. That's not fair, darling. We haven't seen you in what felt like years. Shalltear pleaded as Esteth nodded in agreement. It was like, less than a week. They overreact way too much. Blame it on the code. Besides, Esteth slept with you one more than me? I demand to sleep with you today. That's bullshit and you know it, Shalltear. The Ice Queen roared with fury at the vampire's statement. I'll rip you damn jaw off your face, blue bitch. Shalltear roared back. The pair kept shouting profanities at one another with each insult being worse than the last. Citrinides only watched from a safe distance off to the sidelines before he sighed deeply. Back to this, huh? And just when I thought they were somewhat getting along. Ladies, can you please calm down? By some miracle, Citrinides' simple request actually made the duo stop arguing, albeit temporarily. We're sorry for displeasing you, hubby. Hubby? This is a new nickname. We hope you can forgive us, they said simultaneously. And possibly use your fat cock to fuck my throat as a reward. Esteth quietly muttered to herself, which didn't go unnoticed by the vampire Lolita. You bitch. If you want to choke on something so badly, I'll gladly shove my spew at Lance down your throat until it comes out your ass. You're so fucking short I don't think you could even do that. Fuck you. I'm just going to pull a demiurge and leave the two women to solve their own problems. I am not getting in the middle of that fight. Gate. Quickly entering the purple portal, Citronidas vanished from the entrance of Nazarick and back to his alchemy lab home sweet home. The alchemist said to himself, admiring the scenery of his domain. But, one thing that did catch Citronidas' attention was that the lab was more active than usual. I wonder what all this commotion is about? It certainly isn't for the lizardman battle as that happens in around 4 days if I remember correctly. I should just ask one of the acolytes. Citronidas didn't even need to call out to someone as Elena came to greet the plague doctor. Speak of the devil. Greetings, Lord Citronidas, the witch greeted with politeness. I hope your excursion to the Dragon Kingdom provided plenty of results. The alchemist only responded back in likeness. Elena, it's good to see the head acolyte after such a long time. Elena only smiled from his words. /N, I decided to start referring to the assistants that serve the alchemy lab as acolytes from now on. The reason for such a sudden change is quite simple, really. Acolyte just sounds cooler compared to assistants, LMFAO. Elena and Rimuro, huh? I wouldn't have expected them, along with Esteth to be in Nazarick. I remember back in Yggdrasil via players that a few of my world's animes were popular in that dystopian shithole. Luckily for me, Pararonkino, Tabula and Blue Planet didn't alter the plot too much by adding more popular anime characters into Nazarick. Only those 3. Now tell me, why is the alchemy lab more active than usual? Not to condemn you for going beyond what was required. I'm just curious as I don't recall ordering you to do any of this. Elena's facial expressions changed from that of worry to relief as Citronidas spoke. The Supreme One allowed Demiurge access to the lab in order to create more potent healing potions while you were away. Healing potions? I don't never mind, it's probably for the happy farm. Though Citronidas was certain he knew the reason why Demiurge needed the potions, he wanted confirmation. Am I right to assume they're for Demiurge's experiments? He asked. Indeed, my lord, Elena spoke, verifying his thought. Furthermore, Acaria has been sent to aid Demiurge with his experiments in the happy farm by the will of the Supreme One. It'll be a few days before she's back here. The witch finished speaking, making Citronidas temporarily contemplate. Acaria, that makes sense as she's the only acolyte that could go there without throwing up. The alchemist mused before snapping back to reality. One more question, where is the Supreme One, exactly? Elena was quick to respond. I believe that he should be with Cocytus. Where exactly? I'm not entirely sure as I only work for you. I'm sorry if this answer displeases you, my lord. The salaryman's most likely in that fake base near the Lizardman village. In that case, I'll just physically report to him like how I did when Shalltear got brainwashed. Regarding Demiurge, I'll just give him a written copy of what I'll say to Ins. However, I'll have to talk to the demon too so I know what his new plans will be once he receives my report. That way, if something different happens compared to the plot, I won't be taken by surprise. I see this as an absolute win. There is no need to apologize, Elena. I'll figure out his whereabouts in no time. Regardless of that, I thank you for updating me on the current state of the alchemy lab. If there's anything else that is of interest, report to me. If not, you're free to continue your work. No, my lord. That is all. The witch gave a slight bow for respect before attending to her duties. Well, I'm glad that stuff is sorted out. In that case, I should visit the oblivious salaryman in that fake hut. Once that's done, I'll head back here, write a report, and have an acolyte deliver it to Demiurge. Scene change. In's old gown sat in a rather exquisite chair within the Monument of Ruin, otherwise known as Fake Nazarick, which was located in the center of the Great Forest of Tob. Though it was quite odd that such a beautiful seat was located within a simple cabin, the Guardians demanded that the Overlord could only sit on a throne worthy of a supreme being, not a simple and plain wooden chair. The skeleton tapped his bony finger repeatedly on the throne's armrest as he watched the actions of a certain lizard in a mirror in front of him. This should be a good enough test for Cocytus and to confirm some personal theories of mine regarding the NPCs. Ins thought deeply as he closed his non-existent eyes, unaware that a certain plague doctor appeared in front of him. Hello there. General Kenobi, hee. What the fuck? Where did Citronidas come from? I almost had a heart attack and I don't even have a heart? He's so scary. Hello, Citronidas. I see that you're back from your trip to the Dragon Kingdom. How was it? The skeleton's regal and royal voice made it impossibly hard to discern any shock or worry he expressed in his mind. The excursion has been nothing but fruitful, my lord. I, along with Esteth and Shalltear, have accomplished many things regarding knowledge and theories in that region of the supercontinent. But most importantly, helping to set up your wonderful 10,000-year grand plan. In's jaw dropped. Yes, my 10,000-year grand plan? I'm very pleased that you're progressing my plan, Citronidas. Ins repeated Citronidas' last words, making it seem like he knew what he was talking about. The plague doctor, however, did his very best not to chuckle at the skeleton's statements. This guy does not know what he's talking about, haha. How in the 9 circles of hell does Ins fool all the NPCs into thinking he isn't some idiot? I mean, I know the actual reason why. Yeah no, lore and shit. But seeing this stuff transpire in real life is too good to be true, haha. Anyways, fill me in on everything you've learned from the trip. I've heard quite a few rumors of a powerful adventurer team in that region coming to prominence. Are you sure you aren't attempting to steal the Dark Hero's thunder? Ha ha ha. The skeleton rhetorically asked before chuckling. Certainly not, my lord. It's only due to the circumstances of the Dragon Kingdom that my adventurer team has more grand achievements compared to darkness. In around a month, the grand plan will fix that. He. Citrinita's low laugh made In's fictional skin shiver with fear. Please continue. The plague doctor only nodded before giving his report. We quickly established ourselves as powerful and mysterious adventurers. Due to this, we caught the attention of Queen Draudelian Oraculus, who wanted to thank me personally for protecting the nation from potentially losing another city. Ins nodded as he processed the information. As a result of meeting the Queen, I was able to obtain the knowledge I sought out from the country. The piece of knowledge in question being held in this. Opening his inventory, Citrinitas pulled out what appeared to be a plain, hardcover book. Ins made a hum with his non-existent mouth as the book floated to his skeletal hand. A book, he said to himself, opening and quickly flickering the pages. Not just any book, but a book on wild magic. While there were multiple books on the topic, I just composite all their contents to this one, singular book for efficiency. The sentence made Ins ponder deeply. Wild magic, huh? Ins murmured under his breath. Definitely one of the mysteries that I would like uncovered. Citrinitas, could you kindly familiarize me with the topic? I have a few questions I'd like answered. Ins asked politely, to which Citrinitas responded in kind. Of course, my lord. Do you think denizens of Nazarick can use wild magic to their advantage? Possibly even a substitute for tier magic in some regards? For example, using the magic system in a battle or crafting magical items. Ins questioned. With my current knowledge and understanding of things, only true dragon lords and their descendants can use wild magic. So as of now, the portion of the book that's filled with wild magic spells is useless. Ins gave out what appeared to be the feeling of disappointment, though his plain skeletal face made it hard to confirm his actual emotions. Do not be alarmed, my lord. I do have a couple of theories that could possibly change that. Hypothetically, could a denizen of Nazarick use wild magic if I replaced their blood with that of a true dragon lord's? Perhaps transmute an organ or limb? Just a few out of many possible ideas that could combat the issue. The plague doctor concluded. Interesting, very interesting. The same process could have Nazarick denizens make use of martial arts and talents too. The Overlord mused, stroking his chin. That is correct, my lord. Your knowledge knows no bounds. Citrinitas made sure to compliment the salaryman every now and then to seem normal. I just pointed out a simple observation. No need to praise me like that. There is no need for the compliment. Citrinita the alchemist internally smirked. Why of course there is, Lord Ins. You're the last supreme being that stayed with his creations until the end. Your powers are unfathomable and your intellect is boundless. How are you not worthy of praise? Once more, Ins's jaw dropped to the ground from the words that came out of Citrinita's mouth. Intellect boundless? I didn't even go to middle school. While Ins was overreacting, as usual, Citrinitas was laughing his ass off in his mind. Ha. Oh, how I wish I could read this guy's mind right now. I could never get tired of this. Ahem. Ins faked a cough, doing his best to sound like he was clearing his throat. Why your praise is well appreciated, Citrinitas. Putting that aside, can you go back to wild magic, please? The plague doctor slightly bowed, showing compliance to the Overlord. Back to the topic of wild magic. The lost art, while it can do things tier magic can't in some regards, the whole system is inefficient unless you're a dragon lord. Unlike tier magic, which is powered by mana, wild magic is powered by the soul. Taking the queen as an example, due to only being 1/8 of a true dragon, the number of souls she has to sacrifice is not worth casting a spell. That's a shame. Ins slightly trailed off. Though I am interested in what wild magic can do that tier magic can't. Nonetheless, I appreciate the information. I believe that Demiurge is working on some breeding experiments in the Abelian Hills and whatnot. If you need a true dragon lord to continue your research on wild magic, all you need to do is ask. I'm sure a dragon of that caliber would do wonders for the Archdevil as well as you. Setting that aside, I would love to read a written report on all your theories later on. Are there any other bits of information I should know of? Demiurge and his happy farm. I'm gonna have to visit that place soon. How fantastic. Other than wild magic, there is nothing else that warrants your attention, my lord. Everything else regarding my excursion shall be on my report. Citrinitas summed up. Ins raised his hand, levitating the wild magic book he held back to Citrinitas, who put it in his inventory once more. Being completely honest, thank God I don't have to continue with this report anymore. That shit gets annoying. I'll just add plot points onto the report like how world items make you immune to wild magic. Though for that statement, I'll just label it a theory as I have no actual proof of it. This along with whatever the hell is happening in the sea city and that weird dolphin. Very good, Citrinitas. I am pleased with your work. Ins said as Citrinitas slightly bowed. It is my pleasure serving you, my lord. That was a slight lie. Though Citronidas enjoyed being in Nazarick, he didn't really like having to act well-mannered all the time. It gets quite repetitive on occasions. Teleportation. The plague doctor vanished from thin air from the chant of a spell, leaving the Overlord alone on his luxurious throne once more. Ugh. The skeleton gave a deep sigh. Citronidas is a scary person just like everyone else. Possibly even scarier due to his elusive nature. Though I think I managed well in the end. The plague doctor doesn't seem to suspect I'm some incompetent fool. Wait, what if he already knows that and is just acting? Ah. Scene change. You know, you really should marry that young queen from the Dragon Kingdom, Littleger, said an old man, adorned in robes of riches. His name was Fleder Paradine, one of only 4 humanoid outliers on the entire supercontinent. Old man, called out a Littleger, who was otherwise known as Jerkniv Runefarlord Elnix, the emperor of the Baharuth Empire. How many times have I told you that I'm not interested in some child? Fleder only scoffed at the emperor's words. I know. It's just that, have you read the recent reports? Jerkniv gave a sly glance at the old man before popping a grape in his mouth. Is this about that new adventurer team, Hope, that's stationed in the country? Precisely, Littleger. Fleder confirmed. Apparently, the leader of Hope, Orden Carries, can use 5th tier magic? Isn't that amazing? The emperor's facial expression stayed neutral though internally, gears were turning. That is amazing. But my point still stands. There is no point in marrying her. Think about this carefully, Littleger, Fleder started. 5th tier magic is such a rare commodity? Only my most skilled acolytes can get up to 4th tier? Think about the potential Orden has for the Empire? Ria's days would fall to ruin with the both of us. The old man did his best to sound convincing. I know your antics and schemes, old man. Jerkniv couldn't help but smile at Fleder's attempts of persuasion. You're just trying to get access to the queen's unique bloodline with her ability to use primal magic, huh? Furthermore, you just want to make the adventurer your student. I know your games and you can't fool me, haha. The emperor laughed as Fleder grumbled. Fine, the old man sighed. But, you cannot dismiss the fact that this adventurer and his team are extremely powerful. Jerkniv couldn't help but agree with the statement. You're right on that part. Though I don't plan on marrying the queen, I do plan to rope Hope to our sides. Their power would greatly aid us in Baharuth's military. Jerkniv popped a grape in his mouth again before speaking. With time, Orden Carries will serve the Baharuth Empire. And when that happens, our country would be never more glorious. Next chapter, if you're happy and you know it, say happy farm. Chapter 20, if you're happy and you know it, say happy farm. Time skip, 2 days. Narrator's POV. I must kill you, don't dare touch me there. This shitty tentacle demon. And not there too. I'm sensitive there. And no, I'm begging you, kill me, please. Please kill me. I'll do anything. Just stop doing this. Demiurge sat on a chair made of bones, watching the rather beautiful elf in front of him suffer a fate worse than death. Funnily enough, just a few days ago when the archdevil abducted the female from her home, she was threatening to use divine punishment in the name of the Great One. But now, the elf could only lie motionless in her filthy enclosure. Let me go? At least, Far too many times, the elf would experience peak stimulation and reach a certain state before an intense feeling made her body tighten. And after that happened, she would fall back to the ground in a weakened state. Despite her current feebleness, the elf's hatred-filled gaze at Demiurge never stopped burning. Similar to a candle, kindled by an eternal flame. My, you know it's rude to stare at me like that. You know what happens when you do. Demiurge taunted, making the elf groan from the floor. Bastard, you bastard. Demiurge only sighed as he adjusted his glasses. What is it with elves using the same language over and over? Repeating the same word constantly is rather boring and doesn't make me excited. Demiurge clicked his tongue as the elf gritted her teeth. Damn bastard. She mumbled under her breath. The endless days of torture in her cell eroded the will of the elf. However, her pride as an elven soldier remained. Even after exceeding the limits of her stamina, the blonde-haired elf continued to mutter curses. Humph, you have rested enough. Dave, my trusted tentacle demon, continue with the next round. With the snap of his fingers, countless black tentacles started to move once more. Dave couldn't resist the allure of the female elf anymore. No, I'm begging you, let me, go. It was quite the pity for her that Demiurge's summon didn't listen to her pleas for help. The demon's lengthy, slimy tentacles wrapped around her bare body. Some tentacles restricted her hands while others widened her legs. The elven soldier did her best to resist. Alas, it was futile. And no, please. I can't stand the tickling. Yes, it's just tickling. What else could it have possibly been? Demiurge, despite his evil tendencies, is a good person. As the saying goes, never judge a book by its cover. For example, the archdevil is an avid cat lover and owns a litter of kittens on the 7th floor. What good person doesn't love cats? Another example of his good heart would be, well, that's about how good he gets. Torture by overstimulation is certainly different compared to typically slowly breaking every bone in a person's body, self-mutilation, or psychological torture. In this case, it would be tickling. Surprisingly, it does the job of making the victim suffer. Perhaps Aura was right. Still, I prefer the benchmark way of torture. Inflicting physical pain. the archdevil thought to himself as he watched the elf plead for the tickling to stop. Dave, I've had enough of this. You could start violating this specimen like the others. Make sure to get her pregnant. Be as rough as you want, I don't care. Certainly, Lord Demiurge. The archdevil slowly got up from his chair before revealing a sinister smile. The elves' laughs quickly turned into those of wretched screams as Demiurge closed the doors to the cell, leaving the two on their own. The happy farm could be divided into 3 sectors. The sector Demiurge was currently in was the breeding sector, located underneath the happy farm. Unlike the other 2 sectors that resembled an actual farm, the breeding sector was more like a prison with typical medieval prison features. The second sector, located above ground, was referred to as the parchment zone. This was where Abelian sheep, as Demiurge liked to call them, were farmed for their skin. In actuality, Abelian sheep were surprise, humans, and not chimeras. Finally, the smallest sector was Demiurge's personal torture enclosure. As the name suggests, it's where Demiurge commits human rights violations for simple entertainment. The Blood Eagle, Judas Cradle, and the Brazen Bull torture methods would seem heaven-sent compared to what Demiurge does. One thing to note about the Happy Farm is that the name itself is ironic. If you haven't already noticed, the Happy Farm wasn't happy, at least for its victims, to a certain extent, nor was it a farm. Well, technically, it was a farm as Demiurge was breeding creatures and reaping their skin. But it certainly wasn't a conventional farm. The archdevil walked around the breeding sector of the farm, smiling as he saw his victims being brutally ravaged. No, anything but that? I beg of you, beseeched a human girl in horror as 3 demons thrice her height cornered her to the edge of her cell. Demiurge let out a wicked smile as he saw their penises, the size of a human leg, wrapped in razor wire. No, please have Murkcock. The demons didn't listen to her cries for mercy as they grabbed her, shoving their razor-wrapped sabers in all 3 of her holes. Such a sight was quite common in the breeding sector, at least for newcomers. They would beg and pray for someone to save them or to be granted mercy. Eventually, they would either turn into unresponsive husks of flesh, or they'd become pleasure-starved and beg for more despite the pain. Breeding experiments haven't produced any results between humanoid and heteromorphic/demi-human species. Such a thing is possible, I know it is. Demons and humans result in cambions while angels result in nephilims. In theory, reproduction should work. Am I missing something? Temporarily putting his thoughts in the back of his head, Demiurge exited his underground breeding prison. Looking up at the blue sky, he took a deep whiff of fresh air. What a grandiose day to be on my happy farm, he said to himself, smiling as people could be heard begging for their lives to end. The archdevil was going to continue with his work elsewhere when he heard the sound of a portal opening a couple of meters behind him. Curiously turning around, Demiurge was met with a plague doctor covered in an all-grey robe and a white bird mask. This was none other than Citronidas. If it isn't Citronidas, what a pleasure it is to meet you after such a long time. Demiurge greeted the alchemist with warm welcomes, walking towards his colleague to shake his hand as a sign of formalities. Though on the outside Demiurge appeared to be calm, it was a different story inside. I can't mess this up. I need to show Citronidas my gratitude after he gave me a copy of his immensely useful report. Here I was, believing that I had an idea as to what the Supreme One's plan was. Oh, how I couldn't be further from the truth. That report single-handedly made me realize how brilliant the 10,000-year grand plan really is. Without it, I may have well failed our Lord. A pleasure to meet you too, Demiurge, Citronidas said in his typical well-mannered tone as his voice gave out a slight echo from his mask. Typical with Citronidas. He's so Delphic. Just like the supreme beings, I could only assume what is occurring in his mind. His unreadable body language, his cryptic intellect, and his constant, yet unnerving behavior. I only hope to live up to your expectations. Mere words can't truly express my gratitude for receiving your report filled with valuable knowledge, Citronidas. You have provided me with a unique perspective on the Supreme One's 10,000-year grand plan. And because of that, I am one step closer to grasping Lord In's true plan of world domination. Demiurge exclaimed, doing his best to suck up to the plague doctor like a university student to a professor. Citronidas only gave a slow nod to the archdevil's statement, making Demiurge slightly uneasy. Did I come off as too appreciative? Damn it, that may very well have been the case. Citronidas must be thinking of so lowly of me? You can save this, Demiurge, the archdevil said to himself. Seeing as this open area isn't the best place to share ideas about the 10,000-year grand plan and to just catch up with one another, let's go somewhere more appropriate. Demiurge formed a sly grin as he gestured to one of the tall tents near him, roughly 10 meters in length and made of white fabric, with blue trimmings as detailings. Very well, the alchemist simply replied as Demiurge started to walk to the tent he gestured to. Citronidas followed closely behind the archdevil as wails of agony became louder and louder. This better not be what I think it is. Though considering this is Demiurge, I'm not surprised he wants to discuss plans as people get tortured beside us. I'll just do my best to ignore it and hope cold-blooded does its job. The plague doctor thought, internally preparing himself. If any regular person entered the tent, they would have immediately fallen to the floor from shock. And that wasn't an exaggeration in the slightest. Is that Clementine? Citronidas thought to himself, almost doubting his eyes. The plague doctor needed a double take just to confirm his suspicions. Most of the female warrior's skin was gone, peeled away with frightening precision. It was only her head that hadn't had any skin flayed off her. The rest of her body? Just exposed muscle that tightened and loosened from unbearable agony. That wasn't even the worst of it. All 4 of her limbs were contorted and bending in ways the human body shouldn't. The ends of her toes and fingers were discolored in shades of gray and black, withering and rotting away as seconds passed. A mysterious and sticky white liquid trickled down from her genitalia that appeared to have been mutilated, almost as if a powered chainsaw was jammed into her and let loose. I must say, this abelian sheep you've kindly donated to the Happy Farm has provided excellent results so far. Her skin is one of the best for scroll production up to 3rd tier. However, her fornicating with demons still hasn't resulted in the birth of cambions to my displeasure. Demiurge spoke with enthusiasm. However, his voice slightly trailed off in disappointment from his last statement. Citronides was silent, observing the suffering warrior with keen eyes. Well, the aim is to find sustainable and alternative resources used to create magical scrolls for the alchemy lab. You're bound to make mistakes and hit dead ends along the way. With time, I'm sure you can do it. The Archfiend smiled at the Plague Doctor's encouraging words. Citronides is truly a wise being indeed, almost comparable to Lordins himself. I wonder where he finds his wisdom, for I will never truly know. Stole a few of those lines from a shitty Instagram post. Hell, help, me. Clementine's voice called out weakly, garnering the duo's attention. Help you? The alchemist repeated her last words as if almost mocking her. Why should I do that, Clementine? He rhetorically asked. I consider myself a lover of poetic justice, so to speak. I saw what you did to Ninya, the innocent adventurer girl, through a magic mirror. You, my hug-loving fellow, don't deserve help. As the saying goes, what comes around, goes around. Enjoy the suffering. Paralysis, diluted corrosion. The Plague Doctor, under his mask, let out an ever so slight smirk as Clementine's eyes widened. She could do nothing, not even thrash in resistance, as her body felt like it was being eaten away by acid. Diluted corrosion. A weaker and adulterate version of its 8th tier equivalent, corrosion. Seeing Clementine suffer does bring me some joy, especially after what she's done. But that's the full gist of things. I wouldn't do this if Clementine was replaced with an innocent child or adult. That's for sure. The Archdevil adjusted his glasses before speaking. There's always something about giving someone a taste of their own medicine that fills me with great joy. Acaria should come here soon to heal this abelian sheep to full health before we can use her again. While we wait, I'll let you in on my presumptions of the 10,000 year grand plan. Citronides only nodded in agreement. Before I received your report, I speculated that the Dragon Kingdom didn't play too much of a role in the 10,000 year grand plan compared to other nations. When Lordins eventually establishes his empire, just provide the failing country with some simple aid and have the Queen feel indebted to us. That, or just forcing the Dragon Kingdom to submit to our will. However, the information you've provided me about the general region has made me rethink and alter future actions going forward. For now, I'll talk about short-term plans. With the introduction of a powerful adventurer team in the area, the king of the beastmen nation, Clafoth, would want said team killed off as their existence stop him from invading further. Previously, the king could simply take over a city with minimal resistance and wait for the population to grow again so his people could feed on the humans of said captured city. But now, each time he sends a squad to seize a city, Hope would simply slaughter off his soldiers, thus foiling his expansion plans. This leaves Clafoth between a rock and a hard place. Either wage a full-scale war against the country or suffer a counterattack with Hope leading the charge. Now, whether the Beastmen nation decides to do this invasion tomorrow or in 2 years is unknown to me. And to put it simply, I prefer knowing rather than not knowing. So, this is where Operation Imperium come to fruition. Now that made Citronides raise an eyebrow from curiosity. Operation Imperium? Please, enlighten me on the subject, Demiurge. Citronides asked as the Archdevil complied. Operation Imperium is pretty much making Clafoth submit to the will of Nazarick in secret. While everything seems normal from the outside, we control from the shadows. This allows us to gain another pawn for Lordins to play with. In the grand scheme of things, this mission is rather insignificant compared to the eventual capitulation of Riestais or enacting Lordins' plans in Roble. However, this ensures that the Beastmen nation doesn't do anything rash and forces us to play different cards. The Archdevil completed talking about what he presumed to be the Supreme One's grand plan. Okay, that sounds easy enough to do. Nazarick secretly controls the Beastmen nation and the plot stays pretty much intact for as long as needed. Preferably up to Season 3. The alchemist said to himself. That seems easy enough for me to personally accomplish. I would gladly help you in this endeavor. Citronides' simple reply made the Archdevil's heart skip a beat out of anxiety. Goodness gracious, I truly fucked up. Citronides probably knew about Operation Imperium from the moment I started talking. It was a test by him. I should have stopped, but I kept with the lengthy explanation. He most definitely thinks ill of me as I doubted his intelligence. Damn it, Demiurge. The demon scolded himself harshly in his mind. Anyways, what are your thoughts on the plan, Citronides? Demiurge questioned, slightly stuttering at the beginning but recollecting his emotions right after. Just to clarify, do you want this small mission completed before or after Operation Gehenna? Citronides already knows about Operation Gehenna? Of course he would, I'd expect nothing less from the mysterious plague doctor. He's always one step ahead of the competition. Demiurge couldn't help but compliment his colleague as usual. Either is fine, Citronides. Whatever works best for your schedule is fine with me, the devil stated as Citronides thought for a brief moment. The room fell to near silence with only the muffled screams of Clementine filling the air. Citronides hummed as he pondered profoundly. The plan seems solid, the alchemist said, making Demiurge's mind move like gears on a clock. Solid? What does solid mean? It could imply that the plan is reliable. However, that suggests there's room for improvement. There goes Citronides yet again. Finding flaws in my plan through a lens I can't see. Do better, Demiurge. Stop making these obvious mistakes. The secret takeover of the beastmen allows us to boost the reputation of Hope by staging planned skirmishes for them to solve. Also, via the king, we can get information regarding nations further east like the Troll Kingdom. Demiurge nodded at every point Citronides made as he stroked his chin. Putting that aside, I'm curious as to what you believe are the long-term plans regarding the Dragon Kingdom, Citronides questioned, making Demiurge deeply think about what he just said. Is this another one of Citronides' tests? The Archfiend internally asked himself. His words are truly indecipherable as always. He phrased what he just said like a teacher asking a student about a certain topic he's teaching about. With that in mind, it implies that Citronides already knows the answer to the question and is testing me? In that case, I must live up to his expectations? If I don't, how could I call him a colleague if we're not even on the same level of intelligence? When the Supreme One creates his magnificent country, that is when Nazarick can commence further with the plans regarding the Dragon Kingdom. While things are bound to change in the future, the general plan is a slightly altered plan of Roble. Just replace Jaldabaoth with a beastman onslaught. However, I believe that you already knew this, am I right? The demon questioned, making Citronides internally facepalm. Bitch, I have no clue. Well, I had a general idea as to what would happen with the area. But I need specifics. Is the Sorcerer Kingdom going to swoop in and help? What about Orden Carries and Hope? Will they just defend and defeat the beastmen? This is why I was asking you, Demiurge. You're so smart you're actually dumb. Yes, I guess you're right, Demiurge, Citronides replied, making Demiurge doubt his reply once again. It didn't help that he said it in his usual, well-mannered tone. Damn it, I missed something once again? I wonder in what way he thinks that gives him this unique perspective. Furthermore, the Archfiend was interrupted from talking when he noticed someone entered the tent they were in. That someone was none other than Icaria, the acolyte that was sent to aid Demiurge in the Happy Farm for a while. Similar to her co-workers, except for Elena and Rimuro, she had a plague doctor mask. However, she never wore it, instead, opting to have the mask rest on her forehead. While you'd believe that such an action would have her face exposed, that wasn't the case. Icaria's porcelain face was mostly hidden by her white, shoulder-length hair with only one of her blood-red eyes showing. Her attire was also different compared to her acolyte colleagues. Instead of wearing maid attire, Icaria wore more of a professional suit, that akin to a mixologist or butler. Icaria, it's nice to see you, Citronides called out. Did I come at a bad time? I'm sorry if I interrupted your discussion. I shall come the acolyte was cut off from speaking by Demiurge. There is no need to do that, Icaria. Just provide the Abelian sheep with the healing potions per usual. Clementine's eyes widened with fear, realizing what will happen next. Certainly, Lord Demiurge, Icaria replied calmly. Oh, welcome back from the Dragon Kingdom, Citronides. I apologize for not saying it earlier. The alchemist raised a hand. No worries, Icaria. Just continue with your work in helping Demiurge with distributing healing potions. Walking towards the broken warrior, Icaria took out a red potion from her inventory, pouring its contents into Clementine's mouth. The warrior's body quickly glowed a light green before ceasing, revealing a perfect, nude body, as if she was never damaged in the first place. I can see why those types of healing potions were needed for the Happy Farm now, the alchemist concluded. HMMMMGHHHGHMMMM. Clementine tried to scream as she knew what horrid atrocities were about to happen next, but paralysis prevented her mouth from making proper words. Thank you, Icaria. You can tend to the others in the Happy Farm or take a break. I don't mind which. The demon said as Icaria nodded in understanding, before leaving. Where was I, again? Ah, that's right, the plan? However, seeing as the Abelian sheep is healed up, do you want to torture her while we continue to talk? Demiurge offered nonchalantly, the same way you'd offer to go out for lunch with a friend. Sadly, I would have to decline the offer. As of late, I'm on a bit of a time crunch. There is a backlog of powerful magical consumables only I could make due to my absence from visiting the Dragon Kingdom. Furthermore, my sister Albedo requested that I make her a love potion as it was a dire emergency. I hope you understand. Citronides did his best to lightly turn down the demon's offer. How disrespectful of myself yet again? I should have known that Citronides would have been busy. Despite that, he made time to discuss our Lord's plan and personally complete Operation Imperium. I truly admire you, Citronides. I hope we can do this again sometime. I completely understand, Citronides. Considering your busy schedule, I'll give you a written report on what we didn't have time to talk about. The alchemist only nodded in agreement. In that case, I'll be going now. Gate. Like how he entered the happy farm, Citronidas exited by walking through the portal that led back to the alchemy lab, thus, leaving the archdevil with the helpless Clementine. The demon, seeing his colleague leave, turned around to face the frightened Clementine. Now, what should I do? Mutilate your genitalia, or feed you your organs? Demiurge kindly asked. NNNNUO. PPPLLLL. Please no, more. The warrior begged, who got her voice back due to paralysis losing its effect just moments ago. No more of what, to be exact? Demiurge asked. TT torture, no more T torture, please. The demon clicked his tongue. Well, I can't say no to that as you asked nicely, he sarcastically remarked. How about I bring in evil Lord Wrath? It's been quite some time since he's had way with any women in the happy farm. I'm sure he'll be delighted to give you pleasure. Demiurge gave a cruel smile filled with ruthlessness. Clementine never wanted to kill herself now more than ever.